All set. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Yarmouth Zoning Board of Appeals. We have 3 matters on tonight. The first matter is petition 4819, James McFarland, property location 14 Television Lane. It is in a zoning district R25. The applicant seeks a special permit under section 104.3.2, or in the alternative, a variance from section 203.5 for front setback relief. Good evening, sir. Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, good evening, Chairman, board members. My name is Christopher Kenny of Kenny Builders. I would like to hand out, if I may, a picture of the house to each one of you, and we can kind of go over it that way.
I think we have it. Down?
Oh, is that the one? Okay.
That page is basically
And that one, yeah.
basically the one we'll look at.
Okay.
Yep, we've got that one, Chris. Okay. All right.
Okay, so what happened here was, it was my mistake, and I thought, and I was told that because this is a major egress for this home, it doesn't have to meet setbacks. I later found out upon applying for a final occupancy permit that that is true, but only 30 inches off the ground. Anything more than 30 inches off the ground has to meet setback, is the way the law reads, or the bylaw. As you can see, in this Great Island Ocean Club, which I was fortunate enough to build 5 new homes in this development, we never ran into this before because we had a little bit more room. And Mark, the building commissioner in Yarmouth, said, you know, it's basically the bottom 4 steps of the high stairway. If you change those to masonry, they would be considered landscape and you'd be fine. My client, who's the homeowners who are here tonight behind me, James and Yvonne McFarland, they thought it'd be more comfortable to have this PVC stairway, one shot to their front door, and instead of changing it half wood, half masonry. We did the stairway right up against the foundation to keep it as far away from the street as we possibly could. To put the stairway anywhere else, all that gravel driveway, there's all septic tanks below the gravel driveway. So we would be putting a masonry stairway on top of a cement tank, which is about 5 inches below the crushed stone. Also, if we did that, we wouldn't have room for 2 cars. We have just enough room to park 2 cars on that driveway. And that development there has a ordinance that you cannot park vehicles in the street. I visited the McFarlands for 10 or 15 minutes, and I got a notice on my windshield that they were going to tow my vehicle if it happens again. So we need these full 2-car driveway. So that's why we put it up against the house. So you know, when FEMA came out with this flood elevation homes, and we started having to build them 6 feet above the street, this is something that I think the 30 inches maximum height does not have to meet street setbacks. I think may be something that the Board of Appeals is going to be addressing quite a bit in the near future. But if we could have done something different, we would have. The masonry stairs don't drain like the PVC stairs. The PVC stairs treads that we have now, they drain. They've got non-skid on them. It's probably a little bit more forgiving if anybody was to fall on those stairs, and we all think that it's very attractive, the way the stairway looks now, and this is why we're here seeking relief for this high stairway. The lower stairway that actually comes closer to the street out onto the front yard, that actually meets code because it's less than 30 inches high. It's just the long one that goes against a foundation. And inside that retaining wall is all leach field. So there's no way to penetrate that retaining wall and set the stairway in. It would have to come out over the driveway and out over the septic tanks
Okay.
if we did it.
So that's at 27 right now. You're supposed to be 30. So you're looking for 3 feet of relief, correct?
Yes, and it's just for the bottom 4 steps, the bottom 4 steps.
Well, certainly aesthetically, it looks very much better, I think, with the PVC. It's an attractive staircase. Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add at this time?
No, that was about it. You know, and when I discussed it with the building commissioner, he agreed that the railing system, if we did make the bottom half of it masonry, usually those tend to be fairly weak because, you know, there's not really a very strong mounting system to the top of a masonry tread.
Okay.
So he said, you know, you got that too.
Okay. I'd say, okay, why don't we begin with some questions from the board. Susan, do you have any questions?
No questions, I just have a comment. I went down and looked at it, and I think the staircase is unusual. It looks a little unusual, but it's still interesting. And I figured that there was something going on underneath that walled area that you could not extend that or do anything with that. And that's what you said tonight, that's the leaching field, is that correct?
Yes, and underneath the wood stairway we built is actually the waste pipe that leads to the tank. So we wouldn't want, if we made the lower part of that stairway masonry, we'd be pouring a footing basically right on top of the septic pipe that goes from the house into the tank.
And you've had no, we didn't receive, I don't believe you said, received any correspondence objecting to this. I don't think the neighbors.
No.
Objected on either side. The house to the left is an older cottage. The one to the right is a little bit newer, but I didn't see anything that none of the neighbors were objecting, so.
So that's why I gave you those pictures. The house to the left, his front, the red one, his front porch and railing goes closer to the street than this job. And the one to the right, their stairway comes straight out to the street and is a lot closer to the street. So what Mark tried to do, the building commissioner, so that I didn't have to come in front of you, he said there's a thing called averaging.
Setback averaging, yeah.
And he said, only reason we couldn't use and we wouldn't be here tonight, the only reason we couldn't use setback averaging, the one to the left was done without a permit. The one to the right, the previous building inspectors that are no longer with the town, they just missed it. They didn't pick up on it like the building inspectors did on this project.
Okay.
I think we had, Mr. Chairman, I think a while ago, we had another staircase issue in this development, but I think there was a staircase going straight down to the street, and I think they redesigned it to, it was over in
Powers Lane, yeah.
Yeah.
They redesigned the
It was on the
staircase,
beach,
so,
they had to go.
Yeah, they were.
No, I think it
against the
looks,
building.
yeah, I think it looks fine. I said that it looks unusual, but I think it's interesting unusual, not crazy unusual.
Okay. Dick, do you have any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. I understand the complete reasoning behind it. It looks better than the masonry step would look. The top part, originally I was thinking, well, maybe they could swing that around so it wasn't coming as close to the street, but I guess that's conforming anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about it. And I think it's a very simple request, and it looks good. And on a lot that's only 80 feet deep, and you're trying to build a new house to today's setbacks, you did well. Fitting in what you did fit in, because with a 30-foot setback and a 20-foot back setback, that gave you only whatever.
And with the height that FEMA
Okay,
is
right.
asking us to build these foundations, the height, it's hard to get to the ground at that height.
So I think it's asking for very little. I don't think it's at all obtrusive. I think the neighbors apparently don't think so either, so that's my feeling.
Okay. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kenny, good job. The house is remarkable. It looks tremendous.
Thank you.
The one good thing about the FEMA thing is we won't have much sill rot in the future because, as you know, a lot of our cottages now, they're so low to the ground.
Yeah.
Now we're going up the other way.
Yeah.
So with that, good job and keep going.
Thank you.
Got to plan for sea level rise, too.
Tom?
Yeah, I've also had an opportunity to visit the site, and I think it was it's a very good-looking adaptation for the stairs. We have done the same kind of relief for the other property on Powers Lane, getting the stairs that is encroaching on the front setback, but this is not obtrusive at all, so I really have no problem with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And it is a little bit odd, too, because as we are told here, the top part of the staircase is actually conforming.
Yes, it is.
It's only the bottom of it, and I agree that I don't think that would makes any sense at all, just to,
Looks a lot better than the masonry work.
yeah, convert it to concrete or masonry. So I think it's a very nice-looking staircase. I think it fits well on the house. It obviously fits well in the neighborhood. I certainly don't think it's going to create any undue hazards, nuisance, or congestion to the neighborhood, and it fits right in. We do have one piece of correspondence from the Conservation Commission. Apparently, I don't know if you appeared before them. Did you appear before
No,
the
I
Conservation
didn't.
Commission? Well, they went out and looked at it. And it says the applicants, James and Yvonne McFarland, submitted a request for determination of applicability to the Conservation Commission on August 1st, 2018 for the raise and replace of an existing dwelling with a new Title V septic system within land subject to coastal storm flowage. At their August 16, 2018 meeting, the Conservation Commission voted to issue a -2 determination that the work described is within an area subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act, but will not alter that area. The proposed work did not require the filing of a notice of intent. The approved plan is Title V Site Plan of 14 Television Lane, West Yarmouth, Mass., prepared by Down Cape Engineering, dated August 17th, 2018. That's all the correspondence that I have on this matter. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, thank you.
Does anybody here on this matter wish to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the microphone, identify yourself, and tell us your thoughts.
Darlene Richard, and I live in the complex with Yvonne. And I just want to say that I think the house is very attractive. I'm on the board of directors there, and that's the board that you hear all the complaints. And I haven't had one from any homeowner, so that's really great. But it's aesthetically, it just fits in, and I was here just because I wanted to make reference to the one on Powers Lane with more steps and higher. That I just felt that if that was allowed, maybe this would be considered. So I appreciate your thoughts, and I support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Is anyone here to speak in opposition of this petition? Seeing none, we're going to close the hearing now and open it up to board discussion. Does anyone like to make a motion or have further discussion on this?
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Okay.
Is to make a motion to approve bill number 4819 as requested.
Okay. With no
Second.
condition? Second?
With no conditions.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Martin, Mr. Barron. One thing I do want to discuss with the board is there is 2 requests for relief here. There's a request for special permit, and there's a request for a variance. This is a raise and replace, but generally, when there is a new nonconformity created, it requires a variance. However, when you see this, this is actually an extension of the raise and replace, and it's an extension of what is otherwise a legally nonconformity. So I think we can approve this under a special permit as opposed to a variance. Does anybody agree with that? Okay, so we'll move forward with the special permit?
Yep.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Martin, seconded by Mr. Barron. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. That passes unanimously. Okay. Yes. Chris, we'd like to ask you to withdraw your request for relief for the variance, if you would, without prejudice.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like to make, anybody prepared to make a motion? So moved, okay. Motion made by Mr. Nicanello, seconded by Mr. Martin, to allow the petitioner to withdraw his request for variance relief without prejudice. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. As you know, Chris, as soon as this is filed with the town clerk, there's a 20-day appeal process. Once that elapses, then you can come in and see Sandy, get your special permit, take proof of that over, and record that at the Registry of Deeds, bring back a copy to Sandy for our records.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night now.
Thank you.
Okay.
You too.
All right, so we're going to go special permit. Let me just write down the, thank you. Okay. Martin. Barron. Special permit. Withdrew. Without. Criteria.
I told him
Okay.
second meeting.
All right. The next matter on our petition is petition number 4820, Robert and Lorna Miller, Unit 21, 24, and 29, Morton and Beth Casey, Unit 16, Maureen Gill Higgins, Unit 14, Patricia M. Pedipus, I don't know if I'm saying that right, trustee, Unit 1 and 1A, Gloria Richards, Units 7 and 7A, John and Nancy Miller, Units 11 and 11A, 25, 34, 35, at 135 to 136 South Shore Drive, South Yarmouth, Mass. It's in a zoning district R25. The applicants seek to reverse the decision of the building commissioner and request ruling by the Board of Appeals. Good evening, sir.
Thank you.
Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Attorney Stephen Hayes, representing the petitioners in this case.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me, bear with me, they give me this chairman's package, and it's a little bit more confusing than the regular ones. I can negotiate those. These take me a little bit longer here. Now give me this one right here. Let's see what we're talking about here. Is the building commissioner in the room? Is the building commissioner in the building? We don't see him? He's not coming? Okay. Hold on one second. Attorney Hayes, are we dealing with the July 31st, 2019 notice of violation?
Yes, we are.
Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay, let me take a quick look at this. All right. On July 31st, 2019, the Seaside Cottages, care of Yarmouth Village Condo Association, 135 South Shore Drive, was issued a violation notice by Mark Grills, the building commissioner of the town of Yarmouth. And it says this letter constitutes a formal zoning notice, violation notice in accordance with MGL 40A. This notice also serves to inform you that a violation of 780 CMR Section 110-7 has existed as of May 2nd, 2019. This office sent a violation notice on May 17th, 2019 regarding the number of units at the facility, as well as asking for a determination of duties of the on-site manager. The ZBA granted the modification of the number of units but would not qualify the duties of the on-site manager. All references to the manager in decisions 2090 and 2667 specifically referred to the manager as on-site. It is my opinion you are in violation of this requirement in the decision noted by having an outside entity managing any units. The latest attempt by this office to complete the annual inspection as required by 7080 CMR Table 110 has been unsuccessful, as the manager that is on site did not have access to all units. At this time, the condo-motel units are being occupied without a valid certificate of inspection. The required follow-up inspection has not been called for as of the date of this letter. He cites 7080 CMR, MSBC Section 110, Paragraph 7, periodic inspections. The building official shall inspect periodically existing buildings and structures and parts thereof in accordance with Table 110 entitled Scheduled for Periodic Inspections of Existing Buildings. Such buildings shall not be occupied or continue to be occupied without a valid certificate of inspection. Periodic inspections by this section do not apply to residences operated or licensed by the Mass Department of Developmental Services and subject to 7080 CMR 51 Mass Residential Code. You are hereby ordered to abate and/or correct said zoning violation or seek relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals as allowed by General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 7 and Section 15. You are required to respond within 7 days of receiving this letter. You also have the right to appeal this decision with the Zoning Board of Appeals within 30 days of this letter. You are also required to complete the annual inspection in accordance with 780 CMR, Section 110. Questions regarding this matter may be directed to this department. Very truly, Mark Grills, Director of Municipal Inspections, Building Commissioner. Okay. We are a bit familiar with what you're trying to do because we did address this a bit informally
Yes.
at the last hearing that we had, although that dealt with, as I recall, the division of certain units.
Correct.
Okay. That were one, and we allowed you to
Yeah.
divide them into two.
There were condominium units, but two separate occupancy units.
Okay. And so this deals with the issue of the on-site manager. And, okay, and so you're appealing his decision?
Yes.
Okay. So would you tell us a little bit about your appeal and the reasons why we should overturn his decision?
Okay, well, I submitted with my package about page and a half submission, a little bit over a page, reasons for reversal of decision of building commissioner and requested ruling by the Board of Appeals. And, I'll just summarize that. I don't think I need to read the whole thing. But, I mean, it really, I believe, comes down to, and I wish Mr. Grills was here, I think it comes down to a misunderstanding. The property has the condominium employs a full-time manager under the condominium documents.
Okay.
That manager has access to every single unit in the condominium. And she is responsible. That manager is responsible for arranging for inspections, dealing with emergencies, and basically all of the purposes that I believe would be within the purview of the special permit. So I don't believe there is a violation in shorthand because. And again, what happened was we brought in a new. Some owners brought in a new company to handle rentals, not to manage the units, but to just deal with the rentals because there were some serious problems with the existing rental operation at the property. And it's been going on for a few years, and about a third of the units finally said we have to do something. So in doing that, they changed over some of the locks. Some of these locks go back probably to when the place was built back in the 40s, 50s. So they changed some locks to just to bring them up to current standards. And there's apparently a little bit of a glitch where the property manager was not given the new keys to all of those units. And apparently back in May, when they did the inspection, she did not have all of those
So she didn't have, whoever the
Yeah,
on-site
it was
manager
a-
didn't have access to the property? Is that what happened?
For a short time,
Okay.
That is since, and long before July 31st, that's been rectified. I've confirmed with my people that the property manager has had keys to all of the units since at least July 10th. Now, you know, one of the complaints in the, one of the issues raised in the, Mr. Grillis's violation notice was that it says, the required follow-up inspection has not been called for as of the date of this letter. Well, the property manager could have and probably should have called for the follow-up inspection back in early July. Why she didn't do that, I can't say. But anyway, yeah.
So let me stop you 1 second, because I want to just make sure we understand the violation here. Is the violation that by way of his inspection, wait a minute, here, let me just see something here.
He wasn't able to get into all of them because some of them were handled by another company, which appears to not have a very good.
Noting by having an outside entity managing any units. How is it, well, okay. Go ahead. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
And again, my understanding is that the inspections have now taken place, that they've had access to all the units, so the, you know, and again, that initial issue has been taken care of.
So are you in compliance right now?
My belief is that we are in compliance with the existing special permit
So
because we have
if you were, let's say that you came to us right now and you had a certificate of compliance,
Okay.
would that render this hearing moot?
You know, I don't want to speak for Mr. Grills.
Well, I'm just,
We did the
again, I'm just
inspection.
trying to
Again, I'm
understand the
stating
specifics.
the facts, that, and again, I think and that's why I say it's a misunderstanding that apparently, in reading this, and Mr. Grills
The
believes that
ZBA granted the modifications,
outside-
but would not
this
qualify the
outside rental
duties.
agency was handling everything with respect to these
Or as a manager,
one-third of the
decision was
condominium.
considered to a manager on site.
That's
In my
not the
opinion, you're in
case.
violation. Okay, so he's saying you're in violation of this requirement in the decision noted by having an outside entity managing the units. So essentially, just as long as we're all on the same page.
Yes.
He's saying you should have one on-site manager, not more than one. Is that fair to say?
Again, I'm not sure what the duties of the manager are. I mean,
Well, we can get into that,
yeah,
but
I mean,
is...
as far as the duties of the on-site manager, I believe that as owners of real property, they're allowed to deal with, if they want to have somebody come in and paint the inside of the unit, they can do that. If they want to list the property with a real estate broker, they can do that. And if they want to use an outside entity to arrange online rentals of their units, they can do that.
Okay.
And that's exactly what.
Okay,
they're
that's your
doing.
position. I just want to make sure, though,
Yeah.
that we're all arguing about
Yeah.
the same thing,
Yeah,
that's
no,
all.
I mean, as far as manager, I mean,
Okay.
my
We're discussing, I won't say arguing, I'll say we're all discussing in
yes.
agreement with the
Yeah.
same topic. Okay. Okay, okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Then what are the duties of the on-site? You just mentioned everything that the individual owners could do, like having someone come in and paint.
Do we have the bylaws, place in the bylaw where they're supposed to have this?
What does the on-site manager do,
well,
besides having the keys?
The on-site manager has the keys, is responsible for the common areas, which is basically everything outside of the buildings. I actually put that in, you know, it's actually in my, I think it's the fourth paragraph of my write-up there. So the full-time property manager is, you know, full access to all units, so we talked about that. Emergencies, also responsible for maintenance of the common areas and facilities, including landscaping, maintenance, repairs of building
The on-site
exteriors,
manager.
and also be responsible for enforcement of condo
I don't
rules and
have it.
regulations. So if
So it's
there's a-
basically everything outside the unit, the
Correct,
public
yeah,
areas.
yes,
And then the
basically. And then
units are up
what
to
people do within their units
Up
is
to
their
them.
own business, and they, you know, some of them have used a,
Description of units.
you know, the Board of Managers has run a rental operation.
There is.
My clients, again, a third of the unit owners were
T.
dissatisfied enough with it where they felt they had to go in a different direction.
His concern was the property manager and all these duties that you mentioned.
As far as I know, yeah.
And I would think it was the key issue that,
Exactly, and
that's been rectified,
that's my belief, and that's why I'm saying that as far as my understanding is that we are now in full compliance with,
Compliance.
yeah. That's, we had to file the, we have notice of violation, so we had to file, we obviously had to file the appeal.
Mr. Chairman, through you, do we have a document saying that they're in compliance?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that till I found it. I'm just having a little problem. I read this on an email the other day, and I'm in here right now, and I can't find
No,
the...
from the building department. Do we have something from
Well,
the building
what
department?
I want to find is the language in the master deed that talks about the leasing or we won't even talk about leasing, we'll talk about the on-site manager, because I know it's here somewhere. Or is this, wait a minute, that's in the decision, it's not in the, is it in the decision or is it in the master deed?
This is in the earlier decision? July?
Sure. Please identify yourself.
Absolutely. My name is Matthew Gaines. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Marcus Rico, Everett
Okay.
and Brooks. And just to clarify any confusion, I represent the condo association
Okay.
and its board of directors. Mr. Hayes represents a group of unit owners who has hired the outside agency. So
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're clear on that. We actually are opposing Mr. Hayes' appeal, and I'll get into all of that later when you ask for the more public comment, but some of these questions and comments that are currently being addressed, I'm happy to stand here and help answer them, but I'll reserve my other comments
That's
and substantive
fine.
comments till later, because Mr.
What
Hayes
I
hasn't even
would
finished
like,
presenting,
because
I
I
don't think.
think I did read your correspondence as well, counsel.
Yes. So
But what I'm looking for is a specific language in your documents that talks about the on-site manager's duties,
Sure.
the leasing of property. Can you tell me where I find that?
Absolutely. I actually referenced it in my letter and included it. It was actually an amendment to the master deed,
Okay.
or the bylaws, excuse me. So if you have my letter, it was attached to my letter as Exhibit B,
Yeah.
which was an amendment to the master deed that says the powers and duties of the Board of Managers of the Condominium Association shall include the leasing, managing, and otherwise dealing with the units on behalf of the unit owners for the purpose of renting units for the benefit of the unit owner. Said authority shall include but not be limited to advertising units for rent, obtaining the services of rental agents and staff, maids, linen services, opening of bank accounts, collecting of rents, deducting expenses, payments of rents to unit owners, preparation of budget, records, and other activities necessary for proper leasing and management of the units. This, however, shall not be construed to limit an owner from individually renting his unit.
And again, that's actually what that's powers granted to the Board of Managers, not specifically to the property manager.
And the board can delegate those powers to a property manager.
I mean, that's fine, but
And
the-
do
the
we
common
have
documents
that
don't talk
language
about
here
the
in our
property
packet?
manager.
Yes, so in my letter, which looks like this with my
Can I,
nice logo on the top of it, it's attached as Exhibit B to my letter.
okay. Do you have it in yours, Dick, since did I give you my packet?
I don't have any.
You've got
I
nothing.
just had number one.
Oh, okay, all right.
The violation from the commissioner,
Referring to that?
no, I was referring to the amendment to the bylaws.
Okay.
And the violation from the commissioner that's being appealed has nothing to do with the inspections. It's specifically regarding Condition 5 in the original special permit from 1984, which says that there shall be a full-time property manager on site during open season. And I think obviously the disagreement between myself and Attorney Hayes is sort of over what that means, and the building
Okay.
commissioner has taken the position that it means that there's got to be a full-time person there, not just to manage the condo side of things, but also the rental side of things. We agree with the building commissioner. I'll let Attorney Hayes speak for himself, but obviously, given that he has filed an appeal, certainly he disagrees with that interpretation. So just to
Don't
kind of
see
hopefully
anything in
clarify,
Don't see
clear all
anything in
that
the
up.
notice of violation that mentions rentals.
Well, before we get to that, we can't go anywhere until I have your letter citing this, but where am I finding the language that talks about the on-site property manager?
Absolutely.
In the unit owners,
Well, there's the
okay, let me,
special permit for
let me see.
1984, condition 5.
Condition 5, let me
That's what
take
the
a look at
building
that.
commissioner cited.
All right, let me, because sure I have that here somewhere. Thank you. All right, condition 5, full-time property manager on site during open season, living quarters provided as an association expense. Okay, so, all right, now, getting back to his letter. All references to the manager in decisions 2090 and 2667 specifically refer to the manager as on-site. In my opinion, you are in violation of this requirement in the decisions noted by having an outside entity managing any units. Okay, so we did say that you have to have a full-time property manager on site. Now, do you have language, and I know I saw it in your letter, that references the duties of your on-site manager?
Yeah, he just did.
Yes,
And
included,
that's in the,
included in my letter.
right? Okay.
What do you write off?
Well, that wasn't the duties, that was the language stating that the board has the power to lease. In my letter, Exhibit A is
Okay.
sort of the duties of the
All right.
manager.
All right. And these, yes, you can. You have that back.
Again, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think, yes. it's the
That,
same-
and,
same
okay,
copy.
we're
Yeah.
dealing from the same.
Yes, we are, okay.
All right. And I am going to introduce this as Exhibit A or 1 when we're done here.
Sounds
Okay. Okay. All right, just so we're clear, all right. Property manager. And this is your definition of a property
This is,
manager. We're-
nope,
This is
my
that's- wait a
clients.
minute.
I represent the condo association in the board of
But
directors.
wait, let's just, wait a minute here. You will admit that your clients are part of the association, correct?
Yes.
So this is also their document too, right?
No. Well, I mean, it is.
Okay.
Again, the question is, it goes back to 1984.
I'll tell you what, we'll go back to 84, but just for purposes of clarification here.
Right.
Your clients are in agreement that this is their document as well?
Again, I don't know, this is a write-up, I don't know that it was ever approved by the board. I have no information about where
has
it
been,
came from.
yes.
It could have been written by the property manager herself.
Approved by the board.
All right, well, let's,
By the board of the condo, not by the zoning
okay,
board.
well, just for purposes of discussion, let's just say that it is.
Okay.
Okay, and then if you want to argue
Okay, yeah.
otherwise, okay.
Okay.
All right, property manager. A property manager is an individual that is hired to oversee the day-to-day operations of real estate. I guess this is the definition. All right, definition. Property owners typically hire a property manager when they are unwilling or unable to manage the properties themselves. Apartment complexes, seasonal rentals, hotels, motels, and cottage colonies are common types of commercial property that are run by property managers. The YVCA property manager oversees the daily operations of the real estate investment for a group of 31 owners. That's the total amount of owners. Are we in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The property manager plays an integral role in the success of the investment because the property manager controls most aspects of the property and its tenants. With that control comes a great deal of responsibility. The following is a list of 4 key roles that the property manager is responsible for. First, property maintenance. The property manager must make sure that the property is in good condition and fit for tenancy. This includes all maintenance, including buildings, grounds, beach maintenance, emergency repairs, smoke CO, fire alarms, and building and pest inspections. When the property is vacant, the property manager makes sure it is secure and prevents any form of vandalism. The property manager hires staff and/or uses contractors to accomplish work. Property rental. The property manager handles the rental process for the owners. This includes establishing a marketing plan, websites, setting the rental prices, and collecting rent from the tenants. Property manager ensures compliance with local, state, and federal housing regulations and codes. Managing tenants. The property manager finds, screens, and manages tenants for the owners. The property manager is the main point of contact for the tenant and provides tenants with rental policies and available concierge services. The property manager hires staff to provide all rental services such as reception, housekeeping, groundskeeping, and trash removal. The property manager must handle things like emergencies, complaints, evictions, leases, move-outs, and any other tenant issue that may arise. Budgets and documentation. YVCA sets a spending budget for managing the property. The property manager uses this budget judiciously and keeps a detailed record of all property-related matters. This includes keeping accurate lists of all personnel costs, inspections, repairs, maintenance costs, rent collections, insurance costs, and lease agreements. So, and this is, okay, so that is the description of your property manager.
Correct.
And so your position is that the property manager is an individual, or it could be more than one individual, but it's a property manager hired by the YVCA?
On-site.
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 Okay. Your position is that you should have the ability as a unit owner to do what you want with your property, including leasing.
Correct. We
Correct.
believe that there is and should be an on-site property manager who can provide basically what I believe issues that are within the purview of the
But
special permit.
referencing paragraph 4 under property rental, the property manager handles the rental process for the owners.
Okay, I mean, that's going to be, the property manager handles the rental process for those owners who choose to participate in the Board of Managers rental program.
Now, do we have language that says that? Because all I'm reading is from your document. I mean, if you have something else that amends or adds to the powers, but this is all I have.
If I may, I have an
Sure.
agreement that the Board of Managers entered into with my clients with respect to that very issue. Yeah, I could pass this out.
Oh, find that? Hmm? Oh, look at that. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve. Okay.
John entered that as an
May
exhibit.
have an extra.
This right here, we're going to enter this as an Exhibit 2. This will be Exhibit 2.
Do you have an extra?
I have my little,
Can I just steal yours?
It's the agreement.
Yeah, I still have mine.
okay. My pen's gone now. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you, what's the date of the document you just read from?
The document that I just read for, there's actually no date on it.
Okay, so do you have a date for that?
Do you know when those manager, if I ask my client, do you know when those manager duties was roughly adopted? It's probably been around for a long, long time, right?
Those were in there 1994, I think.
Well,
Years ago is the answer.
Are you disputing the validity of that document that I just read?
I'm not disputing the validity of that document.
Okay.
I am disputing the fact that the definition, the duties set forth in that, I believe, are beyond the duties of a property manager as required. by the
Okay, we
special
can.
permit.
I just want to,
Okay.
just so we're in agreement, that you agree that the document that I just read from is valid relative to your condominium association. It's part of your
Subject to
documents?
review, but I'll
Okay,
I'll
okay.
take it, you know.
Okay, so that's going to
I
be
haven't-
Exhibit 1. This would be Exhibit 2. All right. So, all right, now the document that you just,
He's one of my clients.
sure, come on up. Okay.
Want to identify yourself, just a... Would you just identify yourself for the
My name is
record?
Morton Casey. I own Cottage 16 with my wife Beth.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Good evening. All right, counsel, so I just read from,
several years ago.
okay, Steve, I just read from this document here. Okay, so I wrote, the property manager handles the rental process for the owner. The property manager finds, screens, and manages tenants for the owners. So he finds the rentals, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yep, yes.
I mean, all right, so he handles the rental process, he finds all the rentals, and he handles the staff, he handles the day-to-day operations. So we have this right here, which, and I'll let others speak, and I'm not speaking for the board, but just as a baseline here, it would appear that this document would suggest to me that the property manager handles the rentals and handles the day-to-day operations at the
That had
condominium
been,
association.
I believe that had certainly been the practice probably up until this past year when we entered into this agreement, which I just presented
Okay,
you. But I would
so
also
let's,
submit that
let's talk about
what
this.
again,
Okay.
if I may, just
If you may,
what
sure.
the property manager, those specific things are not necessarily the same duties that were contemplated back in 1984 when there's a little blurb in the special permit saying there's an on-site property manager. Yeah, and again, you know, we're,
Well, these are your bylaws, right?
those are not bylaws.
Well,
They're not bylaws. We actually have no idea if or when they were ever adopted by the board. It could have been something the property manager wrote up as a, you know, as their own resume or something. I don't know.
It's not a part of our bylaws.
Yeah, certainly not a part of the bylaws, so it's,
we'll come back to that in a second.
Fair enough.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, go ahead, Steve. You were saying?
well, again, so the board, this agreement that we just passed out, the Board of Managers agreed specifically that the owners of these one-third of the units could, in fact, use an outside entity to manage their units.
Okay, do
They
we have
agreed to that.
do we have a writing that says that?
That's what we just
And
gave.
that's this agreement? Okay, let's take a look at this agreement.
Mr. Gaines and I negotiated that agreement, and
I disagree with a little bit of the characterization of it, but I can comment on that
Okay,
later if
well,
you'd like.
this is an unsigned copy.
It has been signed, though. I can. it has
Okay,
been signed.
so as long as both parties are in agreement that this is an agreement that's existing,
yes.
are
Correct.
we agreeing that it's still a valid agreement?
I agree
Yes.
with it's a valid agreement. I
Okay.
just dispagree with how Mr. Hayes has described
Okay,
it.
all right, I'll give you a chance to
Fair enough.
rebut here. All right, so let's take a look at this agreement. Parties agree, so we'll go to the second page, correct? Because the first page just is a description of who's who.
Pretty much, I mean, and again, does,
Right.
yeah.
So the parties agree that the 2019 Seaside booking shall be handled as follows.
One thing I would point out, the second to the bottom paragraph on page 1,
Okay?
you know, us lawyers like the whereases. Whereas the owners group, being my clients, have decided to offer their units for short-term rental through a third-party company, Vacasa LLC, a short-term rental agency operating nationwide instead of through Seaside Rentals, beginning with the 2019 season. In other words, they did it for this year, and they intend to do it going forward. And this agreement, to summarize, basically deals with some transitional issues. Some units had already been booked by the former owner, you know, people who were the repeat customers or whatnot, or had already booked it. We worked this out in the middle of in the off-season. And so this is really a transition to deal with those specific
Okay.
2019.
So your position is that you can have another property manager other than your on-site property manager?
Except, again, I dispute that is a property manager under the terms of the special permit. I believe we have an on-site property manager who performs all the duties of a property manager as conveyed by the special permit.
Does that
This is not a
property ma-
property manager, this is a rental agent.
Okay.
We can have our own rental agent.
Does their property manager, I'm just going to say their property manager, because I got to figure out, I'm
Yeah.
not saying you're not all together, but I'm just going to say.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Do they have access to all of your rental agents' units if they
Yes,
need it?
absolutely, at all times.
At any time?
All times, yes.
You agree with that?
They do now.
They do now? Okay, all right, but they do now, okay, all right, that's
There was a
important.
time they did not. Because,
All right.
correct, Roseanne, you do have access to all of them now, correct?
In May.
Yeah.
Hey, Roseanne's the property manager is here herself, by the way, live in the
You
flesh.
can just confirm whether
No,
she does or
is
not.
that true, Roseanne? Okay, yes, we
Okay,
do
all
now.
right. All right. So, let me hear from council first on what the problem is with this.
Sure, I was actually going to let Mr. Hayes actually start or finish his presentation.
Well,
and
he
I was
might
gonna
come
do
back.
mine.
I kind of understand
Sure.
what he wants to do. Their unit owners want the ability to
Yep.
use an outside property manager to lease their properties. Is that fair?
An outside rental agent to.
Outside rental
Outside
agent.
rental agent to
Okay,
lease
well-
their properties.
It's important we make that
Yes,
distinction.
yes, exactly, it's a rental agent, yeah.
Well,
Want to use the property.
all right, before I go to you, counsel, what are all of the duties of the rental agent?
The duties of the outside rental agent are basically to procure tenants, doing, online or whatever, getting payments, arranging for, within the unit, housekeeping services, things like that, getting the tenants the necessary things they need, basically keys, parking passes, and things like that.
How do they do that?
They do it, I believe maybe Mr. Casey can actually shed some more
Well,
light
it's
on that.
done through a website.
But if let me say that I'm coming down from Boston. I'm going to spend a weekend down there at Seaside Village.
You're going to receive an email from us confirming your reservation.
Okay.
Saying that
When I arrive at the property, who do I see?
you don't have to see anybody. You come and you have a combination to a lockbox to get a key. At that time, you open that lockbox, you go into the cottage, you find a welcoming gift on the table, you find the contact people, you find instructions, and your cottage is ready to enjoy.
What if I walk in and the floor is flooded? What do I do?
If the floor was flooded, there's a 1-800 number, we have local staff right on Cape. and
Who is that?
They're all
it
gonna
could
go
be
over to the
Daniel
office.
Becker, excuse me?
Aren't they all
I
going to
said
go
they're
over
all
the
gonna
office?
Correct.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I just want to know, in the event of an emergency, I just walked in the door, the beds aren't made, or whatever happens, who do I call, and where are they?
Right, we have a rental manager, Daniel Becker,
Where is he?
and he is in Falmouth. Okay? We
Okay.
have housekeeping people that normally are within 5-10 minutes away. We've just finished.
Do those
here.
housekeeping people, do they handle the housekeeping on a daily basis?
Not on a daily basis, no.
How is the housekeeping handled?
Housekeeping is a cleaning service, which is pretty much traditional in the industry today, and many places on the Cape. There's hundreds of places on the Cape that are using this same service and using the same procedure, and it's working well.
Well, that wasn't the answer to my question. How is the daily housekeeping handled? Is it daily housekeeping, weekly housekeeping?
No, it comes in clean. It comes
Yeah?
in guest ready.
Just between rentals?
That's right.
And is that the same?
If they want more, that's available at an additional cost.
Okay, so they can pay for
Yes.
daily rentals? Okay, so you provide that service?
Exactly.
All right. And they do it once a week?
Yes.
Right now?
Right.
Okay. So how is that different from theirs?
The difference is that they currently, I say they because we have
Oh, you can
two.
go, yeah, okay.
We have two property.
Yeah.
We have two rental companies operating on an in-common area known as YVCA Condo Association, which we all belong to and have no problem with that. We always want to be. So the other company is a little bit more of a hands-on operation. And therefore, they have a desk in our in-common area right now, and they go in and kind of like the old hotel, you get your key and a little niceties, and there are people on site that are doing daily service.
Okay, question. I go in to your unit. I call a few of my friends. Come on down, I'm having a party. I come in, I turn the music up, it's blaring loud. Who's calling the police?
I would imagine, like most people, I could tell you that I had a situation under the Seaside.
Well, let's say the next person over calls the police, the next unit owner. Who's throwing them out?
Who's throwing them out? Our management people would be contacted.
Does generally what happens now, does the on-site person come across the street and knock on the door and say, hey, you got to be quiet,
Yes.
like in a motel?
Yes.
Now, ideally, that you're correct, but I had an incident in mind last year, which is a domestic incident, okay? And there was damage done to the cottage. The police were called, and, a manager can't be up 24 hours a day. I understand that, but what we're really saying is there a foolproof way of doing this? I think that's what you're saying, and I'd love a foolproof way, but there really isn't. In that particular case, it took a neighbor to call 911 and probably save a woman's life, and that person was still allowed to stay all the rest of the night. So it's is there an there's always I think in any disturbance, it's just the decency of the person that first observes it that brings it to someone's attention and brings the authorities in, and they're in control of it at that point in time.
Well, I guess my question is if you need an on-site policeman being the on-site manager.
No.
Well, wait, I have a question here. If you need somebody, okay, I've stayed in hotels, people have been allowed, I call the front desk. They either call, pick up the phone and say, this is the front desk, you got to calm down. Who do I call?
We have a 1-800 number, 24/7, that someone could call, and they would get a hold of the right authorities under the circumstances. I'm
And
not
who's
saying
that?
this-
They could call the police. I mean,
Right. That's
Well, I mean, if
probably-
someone's being loud, is that the remedy? You just automatically call the police?
That's our
comments?
concept.
and again, I think this is partly, the duties of the condominium property manager versus the duties of the rental agent. I mean, the condominium property manager is charged with enforcing the condominium laws, presumably, condominium rules and regulations, excuse me. If there's a rule and regulation about noise after 10 o'clock, then that would be the responsibility. And in fact, ultimately be enforced, assuming it wasn't a major
That's
thing,
why
a
they're
breach of the
full-time,
peace, but
because
it'd be
we
enforced
want
by a
them there
fine
all the
against the
time.
owner. So if we bring in, if Vacasa brings in some rowdy people that violate the condominium rules and regulations, the property manager is fully empowered to enforce those and also to fine
If they're out
all of
playing
the
ball
units.
on their in-common property.
Mr. Chairman, could I intercede and
Yep.
actually
I'm
ask
gonna-
a few
I'm
questions
gonna-
and comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember this property from way back in the beginning. This property was made a condominium under the normal kind of motel condominium conversions, cottage colony condominium conversions of the time, at the time. Almost all of those had restrictions, has to be seasonal. In this case, it had always run as kind of a motelish type of thing. And when this was approved at that time, it was meant to remain that type of thing with on-site management, on-site rentals, one person handling it all. There's one sentence added there about somebody could rent their own unit maybe to Aunt Mary if they wanted to and not have to deal with things. And in looking in this and looking with the correspondence, it looks like Vacasa isn't exactly doing a wonderful job. It looks like the people that are still renting these properties are expecting to get what the services they did used to get, including daily maid service and so forth, which is not happening, and apparently that's making for a big brouhaha here. It was always the intent. It was an intent during previous decisions that this was to run with an on-site manager, handling of things, sending the guy out with a hammer to fix something, renting the properties, and my estimation, if you go back through the history, despite this newer agreement that was made, I think that was made in reaction to the fact that it was happening anyway, so we have to have something in writing to kind of control what's going on. But with all due respect to Mr. Hayes, my feeling is this property should run still the same as a motel would run. It has a huge office, a beautiful office with a desk, with managers, that have been handling the rentals for as long as I can ever remember, and they're very efficient and very good.
It's actually not the case. Well, and lately it hasn't
Well,
been.
I don't know. I have to deal with them a lot through different angles and sales anyways. And they've always been very good. And I think that if some of the owners are having problems with how that's handled, then they need to deal with that through the association to make sure that those problems correct themselves. That's my 2 cents with it. I think a lot of this other stuff is just kind of going on angles that we don't necessarily need to hit.
Respond to when you're saying that Vicasa's doing a good or a bad job, or Seaside's doing a good or a bad job. I think it's fair what you're saying. There's people that have gone through, meaning guests that have come during this transition period that are experiencing something different that they would have expected. We've tried to make it as seamless as possible. It hasn't been easy because we're two groups that have a different thought process, and it's caused some problems. We've been over backwards to try to make it the best we can. Going forward next year, we will have guests that have come to us under the rules and the way we're attracting people, which is
And with
big today.
all due respect, again, that for this to function the way it should function, it shouldn't be split up. And you've got Vicasa now for whatever 13 units, so we're going to have somebody else now for another 5 units. And then suddenly the business per se of Seaside condominiums can't exist because they don't have enough volume to do the business.
No, we do not need any of Seaside Rentals' money to exist. None. That has nothing to do with the.
I'm not talking about you needing the money. I'm talking about them needing the money to
Talking
exist.
about the condo association is run strictly on our condo fees. It does not benefit from the rental of Seaside or Vicasa. It's not intended to. And one thing that hasn't been said today, that I don't have it with me, but I know we have it in writing, that Mark, the building inspector, in the beginning, naturally, there's something that caused us to want to do this. And so naturally, you say, we want to do something, can we do it? And then we ought to do a little bit of homework. So we did that. And one of the things is we went to Mark. Now, we have in writing from Mark after him doing some research where Mark said that he can't find any place that it says that us or anybody else on the Cape cannot rent on their own, and he went back to whoever the gentleman was before him for 20 years or whatever, and he wrote this in the letter and said that he wasn't aware of any reason that we couldn't either. Yeah. So the combination between that, our attorney with whatever the real estate laws are and so on and so forth, and our bylaws that clearly kind of say everything that you're saying today, and then there's just one little sentence that says, but you
Can I,
still
and Susan, I'll give you the floor in just a second, but one thing, and I think Dick hit on it, and I was going to come back to it, but really what this comes down to is the interpretation of this board as to what that condition meant. I will just say for myself that I am in agreement with Dick. When I look at this, I expect, and if anybody else was coming, and we're very consistent with this, with any condominium conversion, any hotel that comes before this board that wants to convert and do what you did, has one on-site property manager, one person that if there's a problem, we pick up the phone, that's who we deal with. We don't deal with some 1-800 rental agent.
We agree with that 100%.
Well, that's kind of not what we're hearing here.
I know that. And had you been allowed in?
There's all sorts of letters here that say they hate Vicasa.
They don't even answer the
What's
phone.
that?
All sorts of letters here,
They don't even
complaints
answer the phone.
from people tenants who've rented, say Vicasa was unresponsive,
Right.
unhelpful,
Didn't even answer the phone.
didn't answer the phone, didn't deal with any issues, didn't tell them that there wasn't going to be cleaning. So I don't think that you're doing yourself any favors with that, other than saving some commission, apparently.
Just in all fairness, I didn't realize it was a good form to see reviews, but I could show you my guest book.
Well, no. Just let me bring this back a little bit, because that's really not the issue. Whether, I mean, you could pull out 100 great reviews. That we'll presume that you have that too. Okay. But I think it's really a narrow issue here for this board, and what the violation is. You have more than one on-site manager. I think.
They have
One manager,
one
two
on-site manager.
Oh, excuse me. You have more than, okay. You really, you're trying to have more than one property manager. And now you're saying it's
It's a
not a
re-
property
it's a
manager,
regulation.
but
It's a
we've
regulation. Okay.
read through what the property manager's duties are, so.
Okay, well, and again, whether
But
that's-
I don't-
Property manager has to mean something rather than what
And,
the
and
board.
and in terms of your agreement, I don't think that you have the power to amend this agreement to agree that you can have all of these different, let's say that you guys wanted to sign an agreement saying, you know what, we're all on our own, we're all renting it, we're going to manage all our own property, we're going to eliminate the on-site property manager. You can't do that. You got to come back for this board for further relief.
We require.
Can I just make a
Go
couple
ahead.
comments? You read the list of duties for the property manager, which appeared to me to be a mandatory set of duties. And then all of a sudden, the leasing issue became not mandatory, but an arbitrary function. In other words, you could lease, you could use the property manager to lease, or you could not. Everything else remained mandatory. She had to do certain things, maintain the property and all of that. I don't know, and then you said there was an action forcing event that caused you all to figure out, well, you know, leasing can now be arbitrary, we don't have to have it mandatory. Everything else remained mandatory, and somehow leasing got carved out and became an arbitrary function, and that you wandered off and did your own thing with leasing. The second issue is something you brought up about an event happening on the site. Kids getting rowdy. Someone calls the police. Your answer was the property manager is fully empowered to get them off site. My argument to that would be the tenant's only contractual obligations with the leasing agent, not that property manager, and you put the property manager in a very difficult position.
And he's in Falmouth.
Well,
It takes
no,
an
that's-
hour and a half to get
Anyway.
here in the summer.
So
Well,
it puts the property manager and therefore our police department in a very awkward position, because the tenant's going to say, I signed my lease with Mr. Casey. Who are you to tell me to leave? You property manager, I'm not going to, you have no jurisdiction over this.
Well, again, the lease, I haven't seen the leases, but the lease can certainly contain the provisions that they
Does it
will
now?
provide.
Does it now?
I don't know.
Well,
We'll do it, you know, if we need to do it, we'll do it. I mean,
Right,
again,
But the whole point is, these things have been allowed to fester, and these are all problems. I completely agree with Dick.
have any of these problems happened?
Well, wait,
Does
wait,
that
wait,
matter?
we still have to be focused on what the violation is.
Right.
The violation is having, so we're clear. And I don't even have the letter in front of me anymore. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. That's a different letter.
What was the action forcing device years ago that made you all decide?
Well, I'll keep condition 5,
What
but
made you
I'm
decide
just,
not to use or not want to use the
rid of this
existing property manager? You said there was a...
It's not so much use of these.
oh, yes, okay. I'm sorry. Oh, here we go.
Let's be fair and just
I've got
say
that.
that
Okay.
Seaside Rental sells a product for less than it cost them.
So it's money in your pocket. You thought you were losing money.
I didn't think it. We're in the middle of a audit review now.
But is this the only way you could fix it, was to withdraw? Couldn't you?
I had brought this to their attention many times. They didn't seem to see it as an issue. You know, I don't know if this is the place to be bringing certain things up, but if you're asking a question, I should answer you. And we basically run our condo association and our rental on next year's bookings. And you can't do that. And if we did what we were supposed to do with that money and put it into an under account, we wouldn't have money to pay our payroll, our expenses.
But
or
I thought
anything.
you said the association ran on the fees alone. You did not need the rental money.
Oh, I'm saying it's budgeted for that. I'm not saying they come in on budget, they don't come in on budget. Now, ideally, our condo fees, and we actually have a separate salary for our property manager and a separate salary for our rental manager. It is divided. They don't commingle in any way.
And you think that's an efficient way to run, this is basically a business operation? You don't see?
Yes, because
You don't see the economies of having a unified operation on site?
I don't know if I'm,
By having the property manager, the way it used, I guess the way it used to be. You don't see any efficiencies in having the property manager also be active in the rental?
ideally I do, but it hasn't worked out.
Have you,
I suggested how the internal operation of the condominium, you know, it was said at the July meeting, I believe, but the chairman who was there, he said, this is not the forum to
Well, we were,
settle.
yeah,
To
but
settle this
we,
dispute.
well, today, the only issue, just so everybody is clear, is
Yeah.
whether they're in violation. They're appealing the decision of the building inspector. So you really don't have a petition in front of us to amend anything. Okay, so if you were coming for any relief
Right.
above and beyond what you've already gotten, we can't give it to you. All
Yeah,
we can
again,
do
I'm
is
asking-
give you a ruling on this.
And again, I believe this has made the case that there is a full-time property manager who handles all these things, and I believe that
Chairman.
the unit owners have the right to engage their own rental agents.
Yes, but can you separate the concept of full-time property manager with the duties? The two of them are linked, and they were linked in that document.
Well, the duties of
What
a
I-
property manager are not necessarily, I mean, that's what they put together, but again,
But they all
is that
signed
what,
it.
is that what
Their
it?
document.
I'll tell you what, why don't we hear from counsel here? Let's,
Might own its own real estate,
So
and
I'd-
have rights.
Staying right on this point is that what I think Attorney Hayes wants the board to read into condition 5 is that there's only a requirement for a full-time property manager to manage the affairs of the condo association. That is not what condition 5 says. It just says there shall be a full-time property manager, who is Roseanne. Roseanne wears two hats. She does manage the affairs of the condominium in the sense that, the landscapers, insurance and all that, pays those bills. In addition, she manages the affairs and has since 1984. I don't think Roseanne's been there that entire time, but someone has since 1984 also managed the affairs of all of the rentals, the linens, the check-ins, everything we've been talking about all night. My reading of condition 5, it just says a full-time on-site property manager. It does not say for the condo association, nor does it say just for the rentals. Therefore, you can't read into that it is only for the condo association, which is what Attorney Hayes would like you to do. It's my opinion, as Mr. Martin said, I think he made an excellent point, is that obviously I wasn't here in Yarmouth in 1984, maybe some of you were, but my understanding is that the original intent of this property, obviously it was a motel hotel beforehand, it was converted to a condominium so that all of the units could be individually owned, but to be investor owned and to essentially still be run as a motel hotel, which it has since 1984 up until this past year. We have 40 years of, or 30 years, 35 years of that practice. And it's common knowledge, anyone who's ever stayed in any hotel or motel anywhere, there's one person, a concierge desk or whatever, it might be 3 people, but it's one entity that you go to when you need new towels or you need to check in or there's a problem or whatever it is. And that's how it's worked here. And right now, with Vacasa folks, there is obviously an outside off-site entity, which we believe to be a violation. It's managing a handful of units. So we have that entity, and obviously we have Roseanne as the on-site person. What if there's 39 units here? What if you had 39 different management companies, or 30 or 31? I mean, it'd be chaos there. Everybody, a lot of the Vacasa folks right now are going to Roseanne. I think she's maybe going to want to speak tonight. When they check in, and they don't know that they're not supposed to check in there, when they need towels and they have issues. Again, a lot of stuff we've been talking about already. That's the way this was intended to run. That's the way it has run very efficiently since 1984, and that's the way it should continue to run going forward. I did submit bunch of emails. I think it sounds like you've actually read them about some of the complaints. We don't need to go into that. There's just one email I want to read as well. It's actually from Mr. Casey, so I'm glad he's here. That was just from the beginning of August when he said that if anyone from Seaside are inside of a Vacasa-managed cottage, this will be reported as trespassing inside a private residence. He clearly drew a line in the sand. Now, yes, the condominium documents and the condominium statute give access to the property manager anyway, so it trumps this sort of meaningless comment in this email. But again, that's the attitude these folks have taken. And they did change all the locks. There was a significant amount of time when Roseanne did not have access. She finally did, I think, somewhat thanks to Commissioner Grills for taking care of that as well and helping out. But it's really been a problem. I think the intent of the original language from '84 is clear. And I would, again, just really defer what's been in practice for 35 years. It's been working just fine.
I'd like to say I did write that email. And I did say Seaside, because in my mind, the division of the two, and we were in the process of trying to figure out who was going to come in and do housekeeping and so on and so forth. Never once did we ever say that our condo association didn't have full access. Okay, never once did we ask for keys to be taken away. At different times, they did what they could do to make it difficult, from lock boxes to so on and so forth. We said no matter what we did, you always had access. When we were here on July 11th, the gentleman in your position today asked if the property manager had access to cottages, and she said yes, she did. In a conversation with the building inspector, maybe about a week later, was the very first time that I realized that we were in violation of an inspection. We had previously had a health inspection, and that was a little confusing to us because we didn't realize there's health inspections and there's building inspections and so on and so forth. We thought we were said and done. He said, you're actually in violation. And I said, you can come into our cottages anytime. And he said, I can only deal with one person. And I think that's what really brings us here today. As far as the town goes, for sure, you can only deal with one person, and that would be our property manager, because you have to run the town and you have to be able to see and make sure that it's safe for people to come in, whatever you do. And so we have never stood in the way of that, nor do we want to. All we're saying is within our cottage, no different than a painter or a plumber or anything else, we bring a qualified person in with qualified insurance to provide a service for us. Our documents clearly state that we can have people come onto our property as guests, as contractors, whatever. We can do that. And that little clause that kind of wipes this thing out in my mind, or I'm only speaking in my mind, that not to be misconstrued that you can rent on your own is a very big piece that needs to be considered.
I think Mr. Casey hit the nail on the head when he said that the town wants one person to deal with this. That was the intent back then, and that's still the plan now. Mr. Casey apparently wants the property manager to have the burden of doing some of the responsibilities of what a rental agent should do, but not get the benefit of the revenue coming in because they're using an outside entity.
Absolutely.
I just have one other more administrative procedural comment, if I may.
Sure.
To the extent that the board denies the appeal and upholds the violation, we would ask for perhaps what I would call a stay of execution, so to speak, in the sense that obviously if you find that there is a violation, obviously we know the commissioner can then start, putting sanctions on or whatever it might be. Clearly there are rentals already booked for the rest of this season, so at the very least we'd ask maybe for a stay of execution for what the outside company can finish the season, but obviously next year we have to be in compliance.
We actually don't have the authority to do that.
Okay.
What we do is we either uphold the decision of the building inspector or we reverse it.
My plea would be more to
That's the only thing that we can do here
Fair
tonight.
enough. So my plea would be more to the commissioner.
Then, if we were to uphold it, then it would go back to him.
To decide if he wants to take enforcement
I don't
action
want
or
to
not.
speak for Mr. Grills nor the town of Yarmouth, but I think if you had your rentals already in place right now, I don't think anybody's
because
going to run down there
The season's
and
wrapping
start
up in the next
whacking you
month
for
or 2
300
months
a
or
day
something.
on all of these. I mean, again, I don't want to speak
Okay,
for
no,
them,
fair
but
enough.
just know
You have a point well taken that you don't have the ability.
the way the
so.
town.
Fair enough. I'll adjust that with Mr. Grills if necessary.
that would be the person to discuss that with, but,
Sure.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
yes, do you have a question?
Well, it's
Comment?
kind of, yes.
Well, we can save that for, because
Summation.
if we,
My feeling here.
I mean, at some point here, we really need to close this and just have
Yeah.
a discussion between the
Please.
boards. So if you have questions,
No question.
that's fine. If you have comments, I would just ask you to save it for discussion.
Thank you.
There might be some
Need to go to
folks,
public. Yeah.
some additional
I-
folks that want to speak.
I am more than happy to hear from everybody, but I don't think we need to hear about how bad the rentals are, how good the rentals are, because again, we're focusing on one issue, and that is whether your on-site property manager, whether you can have more than one person on the property leasing, and whether that is a property that they're acting as a property manager. That's pretty much what we're looking at. I'd be more than happy to hear comments from somebody, but it's really dealing with that. So if you're on one side or if you're on the other side, I don't know which side you're on. But again, I'm not quite sure what you're going to add. I'm more than happy to hear from you, but I just don't want to hear a bunch of in-house complaints about one party or the other. So someone would like to begin to speak, let's hear what you have to say, sir. We'll use you as the first person and decide if it's...
Sure.
Okay.
You can throw me out.
Yeah.
It's okay. Get the gong. Anyways, my name is Philip Bachia, and I'm the president of the YVCA Condominium Association.
Okay. Good evening, sir.
And I think our attorney really covered most of the points. There's just a couple of things I wanted to bring up, and that is we talked about the locks. But once we had this agreement that, this other entity would come on board our property manager, of course, the board, was concerned, are they insured? Who are the people coming on board, et cetera? And we asked for that, and they did not reply except giving us something from their subcontractor that's a cleaning group out of Hyannis that do the housekeeping. So the response to our property manager has been minimal. She's had people come over to complain, as you aptly pointed out, and you see in the letters and whatnot. But there's been no real nexus. There's no real connection. This is a group that is actually acting as a property manager off-site. If somebody has a problem, they do have to call an 800 number to get things fixed. And I think that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Would anyone else care to comment?
My name is Ann Kavanaugh Smith. I am on the board at the Condo Association as well, and I've owned since 1989. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things about when there's a problem with the two entities now. Most people show up to rent and assume that they're supposed to go to the office, even though they've gotten an email that told them that there's a key. People are accustomed to going someplace and stopping at an office to find out what's going on or what they need or anything like that. The problem is that we don't, as the management, doesn't have any control over who is going to be there. They don't know who is in a unit. They don't know how many people are in the unit. They don't know anything about the person. So that creates a huge problem if you're going to talk to people about noise or about anything else that's going on in the cottage. I spent about 10 days down here in August, and people were talking about how they didn't understand how they didn't have maid service anymore and that kind of thing, which is fine, but they didn't know there were any options to add additional services. So I just am concerned that we should at least know who is staying in a unit, have an address for them to get back to them if they cause damage on the property. We have nothing at this point at all other than telling them to contact Vacasa. So,
just as a comment, these are a lot of internal things that can be worked out, and I suggest are not really the issue.
Well, that's, I understand.
It's kind of like if somebody came to you and was operating a restaurant and, the food was lousy and they wanted you to, change things for them. There are some internal issues that need to be worked on. Things change over 35 years.
Okay. Let me just hear from this.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Roseanne Bishop, and I am the property manager for YVCA and Seaside Rentals.
Good evening.
Good evening. And thank you for the opportunity to hear our woes. This is the end of my 9th season with Seaside. The job description that you read was what I was given when I was hired 9 years ago, and it's what we have operated under until last year, when, without the courtesy of a discussion, a forewarning, comments, that we're thinking about doing this. Can we fix this before we do it? This was dropped on us. This year has proven to be very, very difficult for me and my staff because of the added discussions, probably 1 to a half a dozen times a day, about why is this happening? Why are they doing this? Why don't I get towels? Where's my key? Where's my parking pass? Okay? And And these 7 owners that have done this just don't care about the guests that have been booking with them for years. And I have an email saying, it's no concern of mine whether the guest is happy. Okay? An email from an owner. Well, that's really great. It's great to be in the hospitality business and have that. I've been accused of trespassing. I've been told, do not go into my cottage under any circumstance. Okay? I did not have keys until the violation letter went out, and I had keys for, all of a sudden, 16 cottages. Okay? Before that, it was no trespassing, do not enter.
My understanding is you had keys from
Steve,
beginning of July.
let her finish. I'll let you. Go ahead.
No, I did not.
Go ahead, ma'am. You have the floor.
Right before the inspection is when someone from Vacasa came in and dropped a mess of keys on my desk. Okay? So, anyway, it's a mess. It's chaos. It affects the guests. It affects the Seaside guests that have been loyal to Seaside. That it affects the guests that are now coming through Vacasa. I close the office at 8 o'clock. 8:30, someone rings the bell. It's a family from the Netherlands. Okay, we have cottage 34. There's someone in there. And I'm up till 9 o'clock trying to call somebody from Vacasa to find out what cottage they do have rented, and no one answers the phone. And then they say, well, we'll deal with them tomorrow. Okay? And where do these people stay? Luckily, I had 2 cottages where I could put them. Now, who pays for those cottages? So it's not going well. If they're on the property and these owners go around the property and they say, Vacasa's going to take over the whole property. Guests come and tell me that all the time. The Vacasa people go around saying, Vacasa's going to take over the whole property. Don't worry about that. This owner goes around and says, well, to our guests, well, you know, Vacasa's doing very well here. And it's not happening. So that's all that I have to say. It's a big nightmare.
Could I just have your name, please, ma'am?
Roseanne Bishop.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, through you, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Could we go back to May of 2018 and just describe what happened on the inspections? Because you've been there for 9 years, so every year you've been inspected?
Yes. May of
18.
18?
Yeah.
Last year.
Right.
Okay. So I have a master key to every unit.
Yep.
And when the building inspector comes, we go around with him, and sometimes the fire department comes, and we go around, and when he needs to get into a unit, I open it up for him. He goes in and inspects and comes out, and we go on to the next one.
So it's fair to say that in 2019, that there was a communication breakdown, and the building department came to your facility and was only access to a few of the cottage, well, less than half,
Yes,
whatever. Right?
Yes, because at that time I was under specific instructions from those owners that I was not to enter their cottage for any reason.
So now the building department went out there, spent their time, and couldn't do their job, and we have nothing in our packet that says that facility was inspected since May. Is that correct?
It is inspected now.
Right. Do you have a document saying that?
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
Can you produce it to me?
It's in my office.
Oh.
It's hanging on the wall.
Thank you very much.
We can
Mr.
verify
Chairman.
this. Yeah. No. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I will let you respond, and then if there's nothing else, we're going to close the hearing, because what I'm hearing is kind of what I've already been hearing for about an hour. So if you have something new, okay, but if you're just going to rebut her saying that somebody did have their parking pass, I don't really think I need to hear that.
The other thing I'd like to say is, when you were asking about the May time, they came, they expected, they didn't receive. And I believe that, from what I had heard, that they were told that she was not representing us, so therefore she didn't have keys to our cottage to let us in. Let's just say that she believed that to be true, and that's what she told them. Until the week after July 1st, only in a conversation with the building inspector was the first time our group was aware that we weren't let in and we were operating without a permit. Now, that's not the way your job responsible.
But that's not our purview here, just so you understand,
but
whether you're operating without a permit or not. All we're here to do is to determine whether we reverse the decision of the building inspector or not.
Gotcha.
So, if I may here, I'm going to close this hearing. Attorney Hayes, do you have anything that you would like to say in closing? Counsel, I'll give you an opportunity too. Any of the council have anything that they wish to say?
No, I
Steve?
think you've read everything you have.
All right, I'm going to close the hearing and open it for board discussion. The question before us is whether we uphold the decision of the building inspector or overturn the decision of the building inspector. The building inspector has said, in my opinion, you are in violation of the requirement, all references to the manager in decisions 2090 and 2667 specifically refer to the manager as on site. In my opinion, you are in violation of this requirement in the decision noted by having an outside entity managing any units. We have read this, which this pertains to all of the unit owners. We have an agreement. I think really what this revolves around is what the spirit of the special permit was also when it was issued and what the expectation was. I will tell you, as I said before, that I've approved a lot of these. I've been on this board a long time. I've approved a lot of these condo conversions. We have run into this before. We ran into this problem with the Yarmouth condominiums that are right up there next to the Yarmouth House restaurant, right to the left. They converted that. We came in here, they had a big fight that all these guys, instead of going through the central location of the condominium association and the front desk, they wanted keys to their own units and they wanted the ability to rent them all. No, we didn't allow it. We've never allowed it. The spirit that I've understood, that we've discussed, that you may find in minutes of the meeting of this, is that we want somebody on site that if there's any issue, we have one person. If we have, in your case, 31 people, and I'm just saying this, and I'm going to open up as a board, but in my opinion, if we have 31 different managers, and under your scenario, we could have 31 different leasing agents, people are running all over the place. They don't know where they're going. They are going to go across the street. This is a motel. That's what you own. You bought it. You should have bought it as an investment to make money off it. The problems that I'm hearing here, these are internal. All right? You need to sit down. The reason you buy into a condo, the downside to a condo, majority rules. If you don't like it and you're in the minority, you know what I'd do? Sell. Go somewhere else that they do things more in line with your thinking. But you can't have a minority that just revolts, okay? And then they say, we're going to go on our own. Because the problem is this is going to become a problem for the town. And this is a residential neighborhood you're in. And it's going to become a problem for the residences around it, the residential area. So that's my advice is for everybody to get together and try to figure this thing out, okay? It sounds to me like there's an issue of somebody doesn't want, there's a budgetary issue here. The people are unhappy with how much this costs or that costs, and we're not making enough money. So sit down, crunch the numbers, figure it out, see if you can come to some resolution. That's the best way to do it. Having said that, I'm going to close this hearing now, opening it to board discussion. Anybody would like to begin a discussion on this matter? Tom, tell us your thoughts.
As I read this, as Mr. Grills has said, starting with Decision 2090, there is a master deed that was agreed to in 1984 and subsequently amended. And that, for the town, is the operative document. Any side agreement that has been purported to have been made here in May of this year has not been appended to this master deed in any way, has not been shown as an amendment to the master deed or to the previous decisions, and therefore I think it's invalid. It doesn't hold water, and I would strongly uphold Mr. Grill's decision.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Mr. Nicanello.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I do believe that internal problem with the two parties involved. I mean, they came to us once before, and we granted what we felt we could under their other petition, and this petition was needed to be worked within the two parties itself. It has not anything to do with what we can do on the board. We just enforce what the special permit was. Whether the interpretation is different for some people or not, I believe the way that we read it today is exactly the way we've been discussing it. That it's a converted motel, and you can see just by the facts alone in May of 2019 what happens when you have a communication breakdown. Okay, and this is what led us here today. So I have to agree with Mr. Barron.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Yeah. I agree pretty much with everything that's been said. It's a cottage colony motel. It was always meant to be. It was meant to have one on-site manager and rental party, and the manager's duties have been described as including rentals. I very much feel that's the way it should be, and as was mentioned, if everybody starts going their own way with different companies, then you have chaos. Nobody wants chaos at Seaside. It's a wonderful little community, and it should be run through the office the way it's always been done correctly and the way the original condominium document said it's supposed to be run. If there's problems with how that's being done, then again, sit down and get together and figure out things that can work for everybody. But everybody should be everybody. It's a condominium. Everybody needs to work as a single entity, and apparently that hadn't been being done. I mean, any condominium, I mean, the manager or association president or whatever is supposed to have keys. They need to get in. And the fact that they had to work hard to get the keys for these units and we're told to stay away from the units, things like that are just uncalled for. And I would strongly agree with upholding the decision of the building inspector.
Thank you. Ms. Berta?
Mr. Chairman, I obviously agree with the comments of the other board members. When in doubt, go back to the original document. The spirit and letter is very clear. One property manager, that's it. Includes all functions, one property manager, that was the intent. That should still be the intent.
Okay.
And I strongly agree we should support Mark's decision.
And as I stated before, I'm in agreement with that. And I'm sorry if there are those out here tonight that disagree with that, but I do believe that that was the intent and the spirit of the decision back in 1984. It's been a consistent policy of this board to, in fact, require an on-site manager, one manager that manages all the units, not separate managers, not separate leasing. It's all done centrally. And so I am also in favor of upholding the decision of the building inspector. On that, is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'll so move, so.
Okay.
I don't have problems.
Motion was made by Mr. Martin to uphold the decision of the building inspector. Do I have- Second by Mr. Barron. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Not the easy one.
Is it?
Mr. Chairman, we do have some meetings.
Yeah, I'll give him a minute to go. Yeah, I gotta get this mess kind of straightened out anyway here. As far as the decision, I just think I write a single, we uphold the decision. We don't need any rationale. He's the one who,
Yeah, the petition was to overturn. We
See-
rejected the petition.
see, this wasn't a new, there's no decision really. We just uphold his, you see, this is an enforcement action is what it is. They can always appeal that over there if they want to. Gentlemen, come on up and have a seat right here. I'll read this into the record in just a moment. Okay, let me just put all of this aside for a moment. Okay. The next matter on our petition is petition number 4821, Comcast of Massachusetts, located at 85 Belcher Road, Foxborough, Massachusetts. The property location is 10 Old Townhouse Road, South Yarmouth. It's in a zoning district B1 and the APD. The applicant seeks to modify decision 3510 to allow an increase in the number of generators and increase in fuel capacity or new special permit under 104.3.2, subparagraph 4. Good evening, gentlemen. Could you identify yourselves for the record, please?
I'm Scott Adams. I'm with Advanced Engineering Group. I'm the professional civil engineer working on this project. Also here is Ed Woods from Comcast.
And Paul DeLucia, the contractor that was hired by Comcast.
Edwards, Comcast, engineer. And your name, sir, was?
Paul DeLucia.
Paul DeLucia. How do you spell your last name?
DELUCIA.
Okay. And you're the contractor?
Correct.
Okay. All righty. Why don't you...
Close that door, okay? You got it? Thank you. Yeah, they're talking out there.
Okay.
Also is David Coonan. He's with Upland Architects. He's the architect working on the project as well.
Okay. And how do you spell his last name?
Coonan.
Okay. And he's the architect. All right. All right, thank you. Okay, why don't you tell us about your project?
I believe you folks have copies of the plans, half scale. I did bring in, if there's any need for me to get up, but presently the project is located at Old Townhouse Road. It's approximately 1.34 acres in size. It's the Comcast Service Center, Distribution Center, warehouse, training center. There's currently a fairly large parking lot servicing 61 vehicles. In the rear northeast corner of the building, there is an existing fenced-in compound with an existing concrete slab with a small curb around it that houses one permanent 125 kW standby generator. That generator has a 200-gallon double-walled tank for containment. The concrete pad has a berm to allow the third level of containment above and beyond code requirements. There's also room for what we call a roll-up generator. That would allow, if that generator went down, they'd be able to roll in another generator in a catastrophic event. As part of this project, the applicant is seeking to be able to replace that existing generator with two 250 kW generators. So that would be N+1 capability for redundant capability. They would be set up to be lead lag. So if one would fail, the other one would push on, vice versa. This would provide, currently, in the current situation is the 125 kW is only capable of supporting a small portion of the building. Given the change of use over the years and how significant infrastructure is for Comcast and fiber and internet capabilities, they really need full 100% coverage for the entire building. The 250 kW generators will allow for that, so that the entire building is capable of being supported. Also, as part of this project, each generator will have a belly tank, as they call it, below the generator that can hold up to 1,490 gallons. That's the size of the physical tank. But just to be noted, in the future, it's only filled to 80% level. So each one of those tanks is capable of running the generator for up to 48 hours, which is what Comcast requires as a minimum for standby capability. They also have on-site people that maintain and monitor and also off-site people that maintain and monitor the alarms on the generator itself. They know when it runs, they know when it's tested, they know if there's some sort of leakage with the alarm between the two walls of the tank. So they're notified immediately if there's any sort of issues with that generator, if it didn't run correctly, et cetera. As part of the initial discussion we've had several meetings with the town site plan review committee and other town departments. They let us know that if there was a couple of minor discrepancies between the approved plan and what was currently installed at the site. So as part of our team, the first thing we did is we surveyed the entire site, determined where every tree, every shrub, all the contours were. We analyzed the existing plan to look at how many in-lot trees were supposed to be provided at that time, total of 9, and we were short a couple of trees. So as part of this project, in addition to replacing the generators and improving the generating enclosures, we're also bringing the site into conformity. So we're adding a couple of additional inside trees. So those are shown on the plans that were provided. We actually did them in red, so they kind of jumped out at you. The trees that were in question by the building commissioner. There are a total of 5 parking spaces that are being added. That was shown on that 1998 plan. In the front of the building, we are adding those 5 parking spaces back in. We are losing 4 spaces to the addition of the in-lot trees in the generator project, but we still have a net increase of 1. As part of our discussions with the team on site, they also expressed a concern about parking on the street of Old Town House Road. So again, we do have 1 additional parking spaces, but Comcast went and approached one of the neighbors, which is Rockland Trust, and got a license agreement to park up to and including 20 cars on their parcel in parking that is not needed by them, so that when Comcast does have a large training exercise for their staff, they have the ability to park 20 additional cars off-site.
Now, that's not anything to do with us, correct?
Well, we did provide that document to you, so there is.
So you're not, yeah, but that's not going to be incorporated into a
Understood.
decision?
Yep, we're just
Okay.
trying to let you know that we
That's
as part
fine.
of this process, we heard the comments back from the town, we took all of their concerns into account, and we tried to implement that into the plan set.
The septic one, too?
Sorry?
There was a septic concern.
Well, we're going to get to that
No, I'm
later on.
just asking.
Okay, I want
You
to,
brought it up.
yeah, let's,
Yes,
Okay.
the septic concern for the chemical storage. Correct.
And the reports,
Absolutely. Yep.
testing.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
All of that is actually being handled as part of this application.
Great.
okay, so just so we're clear, you're looking to add 2 generators, increase the diesel fuel capacity, and you want to do a modification to the parking site. Is that correct?
It's bringing it conforming to the original plan. With the plan that was approved in 1998, was approved for less than their requirement, with the understanding that if there was a problem on site, that additional spaces would get constructed. And so we're actually doing that as part of this as well. We're going to add in those 5 spaces.
Do you need relief for those 5 spaces?
It has not been stated we need relief because it was on the approved, it's in the approved decision and on the approved plan that was recorded with that decision.
Okay. Because in your requested relief, you say proposed parking modifications, seeking relief for 2. So going further, it says seeking
Yep.
relief for 2 new generators with 1,470 gallons of fuel cells each for a total of 2,940 gallons.
I can actually clarify this issue, just so we know. So our initial concept of the plan that we had a meeting with your site plan revision group, we were overzealous maybe, where we took under consideration that really off-street parking was a major problem. So we tried to literally squeeze in as many parking spaces as we could. So we were actually capable of getting an additional 5 spaces, but it would be in the front yard of your building. So when we had the meeting, it's a balancing act, as you know. You know, do you want more parking, or do you want to go for that additional variance? So we received some constructive criticism from the site plan review committee that said, that's probably not the best thing. You should probably stick with the 5 spaces that was previously approved. So our team went with that off-site option to get that license agreement with Rockland Trust to handle that potential parking issue once in a blue moon when they have a large training exercise. We handled it that way. So the plan that was commented on with the additional parking spaces in the front, that's a different plan than what's before you now.
Okay,
That
well,
additional 5 spaces.
that plan is fine as far as I'm concerned, because the legal notice only allows us to consider the generators and the increase in fuel capacity tonight. So,
Yep.
I don't know if that's relevant to the new generators, but whatever you do with the parking and trees or anything like that, that's up to you. I mean, if you're within zoning to do it, you can do it as a matter of right, but the only thing that we can consider tonight are these generators and the fuel
Understood.
tanks.
The commissioner at the time, I'm just kind of painting the picture, so to
Okay.
speak. The commissioner wanted to make sure we brought the site into conformance, and that's what we did.
Okay, okay, thank you. If he's done.
I'm all set.
Are you done?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does anybody else want to say anything at this point? No. All right. Then we're going to open it up to questions. I'll tell you what, we'll go out of order. Since you have a few questions you want to ask Tom, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you. So just real quickly, if you can, gentlemen, this is all brought on, you're doing this for what purpose? To
provide,
modify-
the initial purpose is to provide emergency backup to the entire building. You know, in addition to that, to also provide redundancy with the endpoint.
So the power goes out in town, and you guys can keep running, processing all kinds of calls and data that's transferred through your building, through the rest of the world?
Correct.
Basically, is that
Absolutely.
The building supports the internet, our backbone internet, as
Yeah.
well as 911 services throughout the whole Cape.
Yeah.
And if it goes down, we interrupt 911 and internet services completely.
And you don't rely on any other utility because we know what happened up in Lawrence, and now you're solely independent?
Correct.
correct.
And same thing in Union, New Jersey, Hurricane Sandy, that was mentioned as well.
Okay, and your perimeter wall around these tanks are gonna hold all those gallons, or did I hear something on the Board of Health, you're gonna increase the size?
Initially, when we had our initial conversations with them, it was discussed that it was going to fully contain 150% of one tank. Because it's not one large 3,000-gallon tank; it's two smaller tanks. Each tank has a double wall tank with an alarm in between. So technically, just the tanks themselves, the double wall met the criteria. So the third level was just like an added level above and beyond code requirements. But as part of as our Board of Health approval process or recommendation process, they asked us if the applicant would be willing to raise that up, and they agreed to. So as part of our discussion with the Board of Health, they had requested up to include 3,600 gallons. When we were designing the site, just the way it works out, it's actually going to provide 4,000 gallons of storage. So we're exceeding what was actually discussed and conditioned at the Board of Health requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You know what I'm going to do before we go to any more questions is I'm going to read into the record the site plan comment sheet, site plan review comment sheet, just so we're just hearing what all of the different departments. This is a site plan review comment sheet. It is, well, nobody likes to put dates on anything. I'm sure it will happen sometime.
August 20th.
What day was it?
20th.
Have you got it? Okay, all right, thank you. Project summary, installation of 2 new generators and proposed parking modifications. Building. Project is in the B1 APD zoning district. Petition 3150 of 10/2298 allowed expansion of an existing commercial building. The petitioner at the time proposed to construct only 61 of 72 parking spaces on the site plan dated 9/10/96. Excuse me. The increase of parking in the front of the building will require further relief from the ZBA, as only 5 were allowed in the original decision. Zoning bylaw, section 301.4.6 indicates that only that 1 tree for every 8 spaces. Please confirm that there are 9 in-lot trees or seek relief for the insufficient number of in-lot trees. The decision included the allowance of the installation of a generator and 100 gallons of fuel cell, a 100-gallon fuel cell. The increase in the number of generators and the amount of fuel storage will require further relief from the ZBA. Improvement to the drainage system shall be considered in work areas per 301.4.1 and 406.5.7, paragraph 4. All generator connections to comply with applicable codes. Community development, ZBA decision 3510 and associated SP-2 site plan showed 5 additional parking spaces located in the front of the building. The current proposed plans are showing 10 new parking spaces in the front of the building requiring the removal of 10 large trees. As parking in the front of the building is not allowed by the zoning bylaw, any parking in the front of the building beyond the original 5 allowed by the ZBA decision would require relief. If relief is sought, one of the 10 parking spaces is very oddly positioned, jogged forward with a nominal separation from the access drive. and would recommend the ZBA not approve this space and that the area be planted with a 3-inch caliper tree. New meter for charging stations should be fully screened with evergreen shrubs from Old Townhouse Road. Consider different type of bollards to protect the charging areas that are more aesthetically pleasing than concrete-filled metal pipes. Conservation. There is no jurisdiction under the Wetlands Protection Act, state or local regulations, the stormwater bylaw. Regulation generations general provisions do not apply. Efforts should be made to ensure that there are no illicit discharges, pollutants, or non-stormwater discharge to the waters of the Commonwealth, including groundwater per Section 3-03. The property owner is responsible for ensuring they meet the EPA multi-sector general permit requirements. Design review was not present. Engineering the proposed parking parallel stalls adjacent to the new generator pad must be 10 by 23 in size at a minimum. In its current state, the on-site stormwater management system does not provide adequate pre-treatment of runoff prior to direct infiltration. As the applicant is proposing an increase in impervious surface and the subject property is located within the Aquifer Protection District, APD, it is recommended that the existing system be brought into compliance with the standards outlined within Section 406.5.7, Paragraph 4 of the Town of Yarmouth zoning bylaw, while utilizing the stormwater management standards and recommended best management practices contained within Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. Fire, emergency shutoff switches for emergency generators, sprinkler connections clear and marked, all fueling operations to be done according to NFPA standards, provide fire department with information regarding car charging stations. Health, the project must comply with all aspects of the Town of Yarmouth Board of Health hazardous material regulation, handling and storage of toxic or hazardous materials. The Board of Health hearing is required prior to the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Submittals from Comcast to the Board of Health must include a project narrative, a site plan, plan copy submitted for site plan review are suitable for this purpose, an interior floor plan, emergency spill response plan, and storage tank fueling plan. Again, the plans submitted for site plan review are suitable for this purpose. Water, no comment. I do have a Board of Health memo, which is very long, and instead of reading it all into the record, I will paraphrase some of it, but it will be the subject of some questions that I have, so I'm going to save that right now. Everybody's familiarized themselves with the Board of Health memorandum? Okay. I just wanted to read that into the record. As you can see, there are a number of concerns relative to zoning requirements relative to your parking. You are not seeking that relief tonight, so we can't even address that, so we're just going to leave that off the table.
And again, I just wanted to reiterate, so that when we met with these folks, we were showing 10 spaces in the front of the building. We have since revised that design back to what was suggested in the memorandum to only 5. So that's back to...
That's fine with me.
Some of the comments are not really applicable, I guess.
Okay.
Excuse me, why do you need those spaces?
The 5 spaces?
Yeah.
So that we're conforming with...
All your parking filled now, or?
There is some overflow if they have, apparently there's been some overflow problems in the past when they've had one of their training events. So they've had people parking out on the street, which is technically not posted no parking, but it's not something that they would prefer. So our team has taken that into consideration and tried to find an alternative means for those cars.
I've seen them park onto the transmission line, which is other property.
Yeah.
That's why we went to Realty Trust,
And
based on the complaints from the town.
my apologies. I thought I was getting over a cold, but I guess I still haven't.
Everybody's got a cold. That's all right.
But I'd just like to state quickly that rather than you're coming in more conformity with parking spaces and losing buffer and trees, I would rather you have the trees and the buffer and not the parking spaces, especially if you're arranging to have parking adjacent anyway, so.
Okay. Again, we're not going to deal with that tonight, but just for future consideration, should you come back before this board again requesting relief to modify your parking area in that you don't comply as of right with the building inspector.
I think, aren't they Doesn't that come into play here one way or another? They're looking for relief.
It's not advertised.
Yeah, but they're looking for certain relief, and in an effort to get that, they're trying to become more conforming with certain things. And
Well, the only thing I can deal with is what the legal notice says. And they're only asking for the generators. So if they're coming in and saying,
so
we
before
want
you
to
do
put
that
the...
parking, the parking
Yeah.
changes and the tree changes, you're going to need to come back, apparently.
Just so we're clear, because I don't believe that's the case. We're being told by the zoning enforcement agent that we need to get conforming with the 1998 plan, which we are doing. But what it sounds like is the board is suggesting, that I don't want to speak for you, maybe I'm saying, that rather than get conforming, that the applicant may want to consider to come back for additional relief to have less parking spaces than was approved in 1998.
That would be my preference. I don't like to see you become more conforming in certain ways and less conforming in other ways. Removal of the buffer and a lot of the trees there in order to provide more parking in the front of the building where it shouldn't be anyways.
That was previously approved, so that's why he's telling us directing us to get conforming.
I guess I have some issue too. If it's previously approved but never built, does that ever end?
Or your special permit lapses
I would
after
think,
2
yeah.
years.
So I'm not sure that applies either. I would think if you don't
Well,
build it, you don't get it.
Again, just to stay on point here, the rule is we can always give you less than you asked for, but we can't give you more. And I did read the comment sheet. I understand what you're saying. I see your plan. You guys have kind of addressed the whole property. That's great. But in terms of what you're asking for tonight, we've only advertised the generators.
Understood.
So,
Just so we're on the same page,
Yeah.
you know, Comcast didn't say we should, on our own, let's add 5 parking spaces, add underground infiltration, add a storm scepter, add street trees, and we were asked to do that. You know, my client was asked to get conforming with the approved plan.
You were asked to do that because you want these generators.
Because we want these generators, absolutely. So that's what our team, that's our focus, that's the direction we move forward, is to take the comments that we received through the town body and get them conforming to those requirements. In order to be able to come forward and get approval or building permit for the generators, we had to bring the site into conformance with the approved plan.
who told you that?
That was the entire review committee and as well as the
Well,
building
see,
committee.
they can make a suggestion, but you're here before us. We can approve or just not approve your tanks without you doing anything to the site.
So just get the tanks done.
That's what you're asking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just for clarification, I'm sorry, but Commissioner
Grills.
had said that he wouldn't approve anything unless we brought the site up.
Yeah.
Conform
To fall back with the 8 parking spots, the 1 tree, with the 8 lights.
But I guess if this board made a comment that, as far as you're concerned, the existing additions is conforming, or,
Oh, no, we're not making any determination at all. I have no idea what's going on. All I'm saying is, the only thing you guys asked for tonight was to us for relief for 2 generators and
understood.
your fuel capacity. That's really all I see. And now I see this, but it's not advertised. If it said, we're also seeking relief for buffer relief for setbacks, and we're also seeking relief for the number of parking spaces in the front of the building, things like that, that would be further relief that you'd have to ask for.
But we specifically asked those questions, what our relief would be required, and we were told the only relief is for the fuel storage, as long as you got the site to the conforming plan. As long as we actually, if there was a street tree that was never installed, that should, lot tree that was never installed that was supposed to be, we needed to add it.
Right, I had done that, working with the Commissioner.
We needed to get the site to the conforming plan.
Right, so you can't seek relief for something that was already approved, is the impression that I get. That It's already,
Well,
it's already allowed.
if whatever is allowed, okay? But whatever further relief you're asking for can only be the relief that you're seeking that's legally advertised.
Understood.
So sometimes there is an omission, okay? You come in, geez, we wanted more than that, so you want to amend your petition. But in terms of someone telling you that you can't even come ask for this unless you do this, I'm not sure what that's all about, but that's not what we're here to consider tonight. We're just here to consider your request for the generators.
Okay.
So, did you finish your questions right now, your first round of questions there, Tom?
I'm all set.
Okay. Mr. Barron, do you have some questions?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay.
On Plan A1,
Yes.
on Plan A1, showing the detail of the generator pads, at the top side, it says there are some PVC pipe ball valves. What is the purpose of those?
Basically, there's no canopy over this, so when it rains, it's gonna fill with water. So as part of the code requirements, they are double wall tanks. They are they're mounted outside.
All right, so they're closed to maintain your containment that the Board of Health requires.
Yes, so after a rain event, there's a technician that'll go out to the site. If it's filled up with rainwater, they will drain it.
Where is your computation showing exactly how much storage you are providing?
So we provided all of the top of curb and bottom of curb elevations, and that's a fairly simple mathematical equation to calculate the 1,000 square feet of storage and the triangle of depth, and the 7.48.
Well, I got a pretty good calculator, and I ran those numbers, and I don't come up with that. In fact, I come up with, for the 6-inch curb.
There's not a 6-inch curb. It's actually greater than 6 inches, sir, because it's sloped. The high side is on this side. It's a depth of 0.38, and on this side, it's actually over that. It's 0.75 in depth. So I actually did the calculations.
Well, am I wrong in assuming that the concrete pad detail on D2 is incorrect?
That is a typical detail, just showing for the contractor the typical means of.
Well, then what are you building?
We're building a concrete, on this side, there's a concrete berm, so that the means of construction of the concrete berm is the same. The depth of the concrete berm is based upon the top of curb, bottom of curb elevations. So on this side, it's less of a height, it's only 0.35 feet, and it slopes down towards this side, so that it's going from high side to low side towards those drains.
Still doesn't compute. Essentially, the volume that I see does not equate to the 4,000 gallons that you're showing.
So there are 2 calculations that would get done to do that. So the surface area of this concrete pad is 1,000 square feet. It's 37 times 27.
No.
So, I'm sorry?
The interior is a foot short on each.
I'm just talking in general terms for
Okay.
simplistic. So then you're taking the distance, which is the 46.5, 46.60, and you're subtracting it from the 45.85, which is this elevation, multiplying that distance times the 1,000, roughly, square feet, gives you a cubic volume. When you calculate that out, it comes out to be 2,850 gallons, plus or minus. And then when you calculate the triangle of the area underneath that, you get an area of 1,388.
I was not party to the site review or anything of the sort, but I still don't see that why you could not have included better calculation of that actual space. I don't see that you complied with the 4,000 gallons. It does not compute to me. What is the exact shape of those curbs? Show me a sketch of what those curbs are going to look like. Are they in fact 6 inches tall?
On this, in the middle somewhere, it'll be 6 inches tall, right? We didn't draw it in three isometric views, so to speak.
You should have.
But with respect, I mean, it's a somewhat simple calculation to do, especially with Excel.
Then it should have been shown on the sheet. It should have been shown in section and so that the volume could be more clearly identified. I feel that you've come up short, unless you can show me the exact shape and exact height of that inner dimension.
I'd be happy to, with the chairs, if you want to table this to the end, and we can actually sit down and do the calculations here. I'd be happy to do that. It's a fairly straightforward calculation. I'd be happy to do it out, and we can do it one step at a time.
Are you saying the pad's too small?
No, not the pad is too small.
The containment area is too small?
It's a question of whether or not the containment satisfies the requirement of 4,000 gallons.
Technically, the requirement, just so we're clear, is 3,600 gallons. I'm providing 4,000 gallons.
You're saying 36 based on your 80% fill?
Correct. That is
What
the
would happen if somebody overfilled it?
If they overfilled one tank,
Shuts off, goes into alarm, can't overfill it.
Well, actually, it can, because there's a document here that says it could be filled to 91%. It's supposed to be at 80%, goes to 91, and then the alarm goes off. That's what I'm reading.
That's correct.
Overfill.
Okay.
Correct,
That's
yes.
the overfill.
Okay, so at 91% fill, and they fail, at 91%, how many gallons are going to be in those tanks?
Mr. Chairman, as I say, I think they've come up short. I understand the purpose of the project, and I fully concur with the idea of having on-site generation. But I think in the interest of moving this on, that the party provide the calculations in more detail with
Well, we
another
might
submission.
make them come back and do that.
Well, your choice, sir.
Or
So,
we might make them...
at 91%, it would be 4,011 gallons at 91% capacity. We could make it a condition of this board that we raise the berm up by half an inch. This thing holds 625 gallons every raised inch, approximately.
Hopefully I'm not catching.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, well, we'll just keep going with some questions here. Go ahead. Now everybody on TV knows where you're going.
Is Tom finished?
You finished? Okay.
Yeah. Dick, do you have any questions? Or Susan, anybody wants to take over?
Yeah, I've got, I would concur with what Tom's saying. If, this is in the Aquifer APD district and it's got to be done right, and as much protection as necessary. I take it there's bollards around all this stuff and so forth, so somebody can't just be driving in there like
That's
they like to?
Yeah, it shows the ball.
Okay. A couple other things. I'm not at all excited about the charging station in the 5 new spaces in the front buffer. The front buffer is not, is being compromised substantially. There's at least 4 trees coming out of there. We're putting all these charging stations right in there in terms of where you're gonna, are gonna be very visible. And I think there's a better place for them. I'd also like to mention that in terms of trying to come into conformity with the in-lot trees, we're getting better, I guess, but still not all the way there. And some of the in-lot trees that you are noting on the plan are not in-lot trees. They do not qualify as in-lot trees under the way the planning board looks at them and so forth. So they need to be like these ones you've done with the taking a parking space and putting a tree in there, but these ones that are in the center island, those are not in-lot. I mean, the front middle big island there, those are not in-lot trees. And the site plan didn't tell you that. I'm sorry for that.
Understood. So we just looked at the existing plan, and we highlighted the ones that were called out on the existing plan of record, made sure that we built islands around those folks. They had similar questions as far as the ones in the corner. the corners of the parking stalls. Maybe the interpretation has changed over the years, I don't know, but at the time they called those, they were specifically numbered on the plans.
So you're talking about when this was originally built? How many,
Yes.
how many years ago?
This was 1998 was this plan and this.
They may have taken your word for it. Yeah, that's possible, I suppose.
That was on there.
Their,
That was
their
the
word for
number.
it. But that's not the way it's looked at now, and certainly an in-law tree is supposed to be, between parking spaces.
Understood.
So I'm personally not excited about how that's going to look. And I don't have any diagrams of how it would look in terms of the charging station, so I can't make a very good determination of that either.
Have anything else at this point?
No, that's it.
Susan?
Just two questions. The absorbent material that you need to have on site in case there's a spill, is that going to be stored inside? What
Yes.
kind of, it is. Does that degrade over time? Do you have to replenish that and keep it fresh, or what is that material?
No, it's like a sock. I'm not exactly sure what's inside of it, but it's a spill kit,
Okay.
containment spill kit,
And
and,
that's kept inside?
correct,
And
just inside the door.
there's no environmental issues associated with that? There's nothing that we have to be, they don't give off gases or anything?
No.
Okay. And then the other question I had was on the alarm system that, or supposedly goes off, well, I'm sure it does go off as soon as you lose. Is that run by the generator? If you lose electricity, what is the power source for that? Is that your on-site generator?
Generators,
How does that work?
well, actually, we have battery backup system for all of equipment, which runs off the batteries as well inside.
So you don't need anyone, if you lose electricity, you don't necessarily have to have someone on-site to trigger the alarm system, is that right?
Correct.
It's automatic. And it notifies on-site personnel as well as off-site personnel.
Yes, our XOC building, which is what we call it, is a centralized knock center where all the alarms report into. It
Where is
reports
it?
on Chelmsford, Mass.
Okay, and then is that, you consider that your off-site
Yes.
alarm? And then who's on-site?
That would, they would dispatch either a head-end person or an on-call power tech.
And how long would that take? Do you have any idea? Is that online power tech, like a local person that would drive?
The head-end tech is local. I think we have a couple folks that live right, not in Yarmouth, but the next town over. I'm not really sure where they live, but within 15 minutes, they're on site.
Is that the requirement? Are they contract personnel or are they your own
No, work
personnel?
directly for Comcast.
Okay, and their commitment is they have to be there within 15 minutes, 10 minutes?
Most times, we try to make sure, yeah, we can get somebody there. There isn't a specific time frame,
Well,
depending
there
on
should be
what.
if there is a leak, don't you think?
Well, if
You
it's,
don't want the thing leaking for 5 hours.
no, it would be no more than a half an hour, if
Okay.
you want that, yeah. But keep in mind, too, if there is a leak, these are double-wall tanks, so you're not leaking into the third containment, you're leaking into another tank, if you will.
Oh, I know, we understand the concept
Yeah,
of that.
okay.
The only thing is there's a leak in the public here, there's a leak, and
Oh,
it's
no,
in
no,
the
within a half an hour, we
district,
was-
and people
yeah.
get very concerned. This was a huge issue when we talked about the windmills
Oh,
and
yeah.
the
Yep.
dielectric fluid associated with the windmills and having that, in a containment situation. So the only thing the public hears is, oh my God, there was a leak. They get very concerned, so.
No, exit, fine, yeah, within a half an hour.
Okay, and the absorbent material is stored right on site. Right now, your site has got a number of interior spaces. You've got your service center, you've got your technician operations, you've got a meeting space and stock room. If you were not to get these generators and you had a power outage, which one of those areas does not get electricity? I assume you'd keep up the,
The whole building right now would not get, the only site right now is what we call our head end, which is data center, if you will. That is where
Okay.
all of the,
that's the only thing would be fully powered?
correct, with the
Okay.
generator that we have now.
So with the new generators, everything we just mentioned is would be powered. You're not contemplating expanding the building in any
No,
way
no.
because you've got extra power?
The reason we're asking for this is because there is a warehouse there, so should there be some catastrophic event, this is where the technicians would go to get wire, parts and pieces to service the neighborhoods as well. It's a multifunction.
And then we talked about, it says, I mentioned that 91%. This is in the memo from Mr., it says standard practice is to fill to 80 because you want to allow from expansion. It says overall, overfill alarms are set at 91. Why aren't they set at 80?
Well, because we want to fill the tank to 80%, and then come summertime, when the fuel expands, That 91% alarm is to show us that the fuel is expanding, and okay, now we have to deal with it.
So it's just an issue in the summertime, when it gets warm?
During the heat is when it expands, yes. Yes.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So I just want an overall review one more time, what you're doing over there, what's changing in the building? Is anything changing in the building or on the site as far as the size of the building?
No.
The number of people that work in the building, will that increase?
No.
Okay, so you say that you need these to power the building. You actually only need one, the other one's redundant, correct? Okay.
We consider the Cape an island, if you will, because if they shut the bridges down for wind, we can't get here. That's why we want the second generator for redundancy. We have done this at all the other sites we have, Orleans, Mashpee, Bourne. They all have.
Same capacity, 250?
I know, varies capacity based on the size of the building. Yeah, and
What's the
service.
largest capacity you have on Cape Cod?
Mashpee, I think, Mashpee's 400, I think
600 amps, 480 volt.
yeah, I think they're 500 kW generators.
Yeah, 500.
And how much fuel capacity storage do you have with them?
Those would be about the same.
About the same.
Yeah.
Okay. So right now, to power this, you are allowed to have 100 gallons and a 75-gallon backup portable truck, is that what it is?
Generator, correct.
Portable generator, okay. Now, the 98 decision allowed you to have a 100-gallon tank, but as I'm told, you have a 200-gallon tank there. How did that get there?
I'm not sure. That was way before my time.
Okay. Okay, so we would agree you're in violation of the law right now. Is that fair to say?
Based on what's
Okay.
originally there, yes.
Now, in the additional information that I have in the Board of Health memo, it talks about your septic system. And that requires an annual test report be submitted to the Board of Health by a Massachusetts licensed operator. A report has not been submitted since 2013. Why is that?
As I understand it, there was a change in, the company that was doing it went out of business, plus there was a change in management in Comcast, and honestly, it got dropped, not known of, plus the fact that the company that was performing it went out of business. We were speaking with Carl Lawson on this, and we have since, our facilities manager has contacted a septic company down here, and they are in the process of getting that done.
Okay.
And as well as, there was another mention in there as far as...
That's the methanol drums?
Correct.
And the secondary containment, which was requested in 2014. So is that a secondary containment for some type of an accident that would happen?
Correct.
And we requested that in 2014, and apparently this failed to be addressed. Why is that?
Again, because I can only assume change in management before...
What happens if there's a problem with this and we have a change in management?
Well, we are addressing it right now as far as getting the containment in there. And new procedures put in place.
Well, I'll give you my overall thoughts here. You're in the Aquifer Protection District. What you're asking to do here is to go from an allowed 100 gallons of storage with a 75-gallon portable unit to 3,000 gallons of storage in the Aquifer Protection District. We had a petition before us a month ago. The mitigation that was offered to this board to allow a new state-of-the-art gas station to be put in right around the corner from you was that they decommissioned 2 fuel stations. We're trying to take hazardous materials out of it. We would not have approved that had there not been mitigation that exceeded what they were putting in. So I have a real concern with you coming before us and asking to put 3,000 gallons of storage. I understand what you have here. Listening to Mr. Barron, I have concerns about the engineering of it, but that can always be fixed. But what I have concerns about is if we put 3,000 gallons of storage here and we have a change of management or something happens and we have a fuel spill, because apparently we could have a problem with the septic too running around out here, and this hasn't been addressed now in 6 years. We've got somebody that's out of business, and a secondary containment that was supposed to be addressed in 2014. The ball was just dropped. So, see, we're the last line of defense here.
Where
can
is the septic on this plan? Do you know?
I have no idea what the septic
front
is.
of the building.
I'm just reading where this is here.
Yeah.
But these things haven't been addressed. You've illegally put in storage tanks without informing the town, in violation of the last permit that you got here. So I'm not blaming you three gentlemen, okay? So let's be clear about that, okay? This is Comcast. So I'm very reluctant to approve this. I don't think you need 3,000 gallons over there. All right? You got 200 plus what you have now. We lose our cable vision a couple times a year. We've been doing it for many, many years. You guys seem to get it on. You do a pretty good job getting it back on, but you get it on with 200 gallons with 75 overflow, okay?
I guess the changes now is the fact of just technology. It's moving so quickly. You know, this is like a life safety type of situation now, because they provide backhaul to all the telecommunications facilities, just as an example, to E911 services. So if this facility were to go down, even if you have the cell towers on the Cape that actually still had power and had their generators still running, they would not be able to, that call would not go through.
So you're
without the
representing
backhaul.
to us that there's a chance that because that building goes down right there, that we're looking at this, that there may not be 911 service?
Correct.
If someone tried to make phone calls from their cell phone, absolutely.
Yes.
I'd have to see more information on that myself. I don't know how others feel about that. I'll get some. Does anybody else have any concerns about the volume of storage of fuel?
That amount of fuel in this district without any, as you say, dispensation, I'm not thrilled about.
I mean, it's one thing if you came with one, but one of them isn't even going to be online.
It's
just
just
gonna be-
redundancy for the other one,
In
correct.
case it were to go down, exactly, because it's
I
considered a
mean,
critical
you
infrastructure.
guys could have off-site, ready-to-go portable generators to bring right to that site, could
Which
you
we do.
not?
Yep.
So why do you really need these? But
Because
for the
there are
convenience.
events that are so severe, like Sandy, that roads are impassable for an extended period of time. There's trees down, they have to be cleared. If you have a 200-gallon or 100-gallon tank and that thing can only run for 8 hours, that is not sufficient time for the storm to physically pass. There's obligations where they cannot put their technicians in unsafe conditions. You know, in the middle of a hurricane, a Category 5 hurricane, a Category 4 hurricane, you can't send your technicians out to clear trees so you can get fuel in. You have to have a significant amount of storage to be able to run that generator until the storm is passed, and you have an opportunity to go bring additional fuel.
Well, you know, we've had a number of storms come through here in the past 20 years, and things seem to be working okay over there at that site.
Just keep in mind, a lot of the worst storms that we've seen in the past 10 years has happened in the past 10 years. You know, these storms are getting more severe with global warming and other situations. Comcast is not doing it because they want to spend an exorbitant amount of money to do this. They're doing this because they feel there's a need to make sure that we provide coverage to the residents of the Cape Cod.
I never try to speak up for big business. However, I do think we need to be also aware of the issue of technology and the uses of it, and particularly, I always have in mind the hospital and the need during an event for the hospital to be in constant touch in both directions.
Well, how would the hospital be affected with this site?
Communication.
Phone service.
Where
And the technology,
what do you do for the hospital from this site?
If they have our internet service, you know, we provide all those.
Can't you switch that over? Can't Mashpee pick that up and send it over there?
That's not how it works, unfortunately, no. That's not how it works. Most, like, for instance, I just upgraded my own company, phone system. And the phone systems my firm used to have went over the typical Verizon wireless lines. Now it's V over IP, voice over IP phones. Every phone in my entire building, it goes out over the internet to get service. If my internet goes down, I can't make any phone calls from my physical handsets in my offices. Not only that, but also their cell phones. Nobody will be able to make phone calls from the cell phone as well. So everybody is going away from the landline situations. Most homes we build nowadays don't even have landlines installed.
Nobody's had a landline for
Yeah.
over 10 years. Well, some people, I'm just saying, believe me, okay, but I don't think we're talking about landlines anymore.
I think that my point was, I think that we have to see if we can strike a balance between, but I agree with you, maybe excess capacity.
Well, I definitely think there's excess capacity here.
I think but I also think they're planning for the future. Maybe excess now, but it may not be excess in 5 years.
Well, maybe the best place to plan is not plan for the future in the town of Yarmouth Aquifer Protection District.
Could be. Maybe something could be moved off.
Maybe you need a new facility at another location.
We lessen the fuel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Go ahead.
So-
Go ahead.
So there's a valve that you can shut it off at, make it at 900 gallons each. So you'll have 1,800 gallons capacity total. So we can shut it off.
But you could still fill them up, though, if you wanted to, right?
No, it would shut off at 900, or 80%.
Yeah, but you guys already doubled your fuel capacity without even telling us, so why should we believe you?
Well, we have a,
Again, I'm not calling you guys questionable, okay? I mean, you come in here and I'm looking at all sorts of violations, and now you want to put 3,000 gallons of fuel, and you say nothing's ever going to happen to it. If 3,000 gallons of fuel spilled out into our drinking water, then we'd have a problem.
right. Can I come up?
Sure, come on.
So this is another attachment that you can add on to the, we can shut it off at 900 gallons.
Okay.
So the tank would be larger, but you just only fill it to 900?
Yeah.
Is that what you're
We
saying?
don't let you put any more than 900 in it.
Right, so we want to run at, Comcast needs at 48 hours.
When are you,
Right now, she's capable of running 74 hours. So we could shut it off. I mean, we could still meet the, the standards of 48 hours if we install that. So it's an option to decrease the fuel.
So, and with the decreased fuel is obviously decrease in operating hours. We'd be dropping down from 72 to 48. Is that what you're
48
saying?
hours,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so that's one bit of compromise if we wanted to.
say that again, 72 to 40, what's 72 to 48 hours?
So right now, the tank will run for that 72 hours.
In other words,
This
if we
is
lost
installed-
electricity, it would. run-
Which tank are we talking about?
The one that's there now. the-
200
No,
gallons?
no, the new tank.
The new tank, the
Sorry, the new
1,470
generator.
gallon tank, I apologize. That's
That'll run for how long?
72 hours.
That won't run with that much diesel fuel, won't run more than 72 hours?
No, it's based on full load
Full
of the
load,
generator,
full load capacity.
yeah.
That's what she's,
So if we were knocked down for a week, it wouldn't matter.
They've got to get fuel. They have fueling operations, tankers and fueling trucks that are on standby. So when a storm starts to roll in, they have tankers that position themselves like checkers across the board, so to speak, so that they place them within close proximity to be able to go out and do fueling runs to those vehicles to top them off. But absolutely, the storm's got to pass in order for them to be able to get in and do it. So the longer we have, the better. But
Mr. Chairman, in my previous position, I was intimately involved with Hurricane Sandy, and that was one of the most significant issues, was the inability
Well,
to get
I couldn't agree with you more, but I'm not preparing for Hurricane Sandy.
No, but
all
we
right?
should.
Well, I understand that, but the problem is we do have to strike a balance here. Now you're telling me will provide you from 72. So how often do you refuel these things?
It would depend on the storm.
Well, let's talk about how many gallons, how much fuel did you guys refuel in Mashpee last year? How many gallons of fuel did you buy?
I'd be guessing. Just during the storms,
No, all year, for the whole year.
I couldn't tell you that right off the top of my head, sorry.
Hundreds of thousands of gallons?
No,
no. Because it just goes on a weekly
These
run.
only run during a storm?
Well, they run for a weekly test for a very small.
Okay, you do a test,
Yeah.
but otherwise they don't run.
I would say probably if there's no storms, not even 200 gallons a year, if there's no storms.
So the 900 gallon might be a viable compromise. Rather than go up to 1,400, maybe 900 would be a viable compromise. And that way we drop down from 72 to 48.
I don't think that would be advisable.
No.
I managed an agency that had at least a dozen facilities, and they had to operate independently for at least 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense to cut yourself short.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the safety of these tanks and the design of this whole system?
I said earlier that I fully support the idea of the generators and the operation for on an emergency basis. My only comments were on the containment, but the rest of the concept that's been proposed, I fully concur. Thankfully, we had the Department of Health gave us some very, very good guidelines for the conditions that we need to see for this petition. But as far as the generators are concerned, I would not I would not go to a shorter schedule.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I add one thing? In regards to the change management comments, Comcast has a PM program we have had going on now for 10 years, where these generators are PM'd annually and quarterly. So there is always somebody looking at them, and that is something that is not missed. We want to make sure they're always able to run. So in regards to management changes, there's always somebody. This program is implemented, we have standards on it and requirements, and we have a turnkey vendor that deals with it. You know, it's always out to bid, so that is always something that will be taken care of, not overlooked.
Okay. Okay, and how soon do you want to get these up and running?
As soon as we can get them approved, we were hoping to start construction this year.
And how long would it take you to install this secondary containment with the, area that they want for the septic system?
Oh, that's easy, because it's something you can buy off the shelf. It's basically two 55-gallon drums, and they have these pallets. I'm going to...
You mean this what they're talking about, the violation that you're in right now?
Exactly. There's two 55-gallon drums that are located within a storage shed. It's actually, close to the generator enclosure. It's actually right here. Plan set. So that we're basically going to buy readily available, pre-manufactured assemblies that they will put in place, and the 55-gallon tanks will be placed on top of them. There's a grading material. If it were to puncture, it would go below it and be fully stored under this rectangular shaped.
This is relative to the septic system we're talking about, correct?
Yes. It's the chemicals for the septic.
Yes. And our facility manager, as I said, is working actively with Carl Lawson on getting this done.
And is there going to be someone that's going to maintain those?
This new septic company that they've engaged on the Cape here, yes, is all part of that. And it's being implemented into the preventive maintenance program to be looked at as well.
Okay, so with any approval, we could also say that, so you can address these before you construct those?
Absolutely.
Correct. Yep. Well, I mean, within the month, I'm thinking John was saying.
Yeah.
Yep. We knew this had to get done prior.
I'm hungry.
Yes, I'm right.
Sick.
Yeah, well, I was sick, so I guess I won't get sick again, thank God. No, we'll get you out of here. We need you alive right now, though.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about the calculations, I could walk through it really quickly.
No, I tell you, I'm just gonna, because Mr. Barron is our containment expert. Yeah, when we have an engineering question, we go to, he's our on-site engineer here. But what I think I would like to see, though, and I'm just actually speaking for Mr. Barron and his concerns, is I would like to see a more detailed plan that addresses some of the concerns that he has.
Should we make that
All
a
right.
condition, Mr.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to have to put that as a condition, that we have a detailed plan that, and how many gallons do you want to say
Well, at
here?
least the computations should show on one of, on one of the plan sheets.
I can add it right to the sheet, absolutely.
Yeah.
I could draw a quick little isometric showing the volume calculations, not a problem.
Yes. Section and computation.
Absolutely.
What is there is what should be planned out.
I'd be happy if you could address some of my concerns, too.
Well,
I know it doesn't say that on there, but apparently they're being told they can do this.
well, as long as it doesn't, what are they missing?
Trees.
They've got improperly labeled trees, they're missing trees, they're putting 5 more spaces in the front buffer.
No, they're not putting 5 more spaces in the front buffer.
Yep.
They can't do that. They need relief for that, and they haven't advertised that.
Well, apparently they're being told they can because of the old.
Well, no, they can't, no.
Yeah,
They-
This is the approved plan
Who-
that they were telling us to get in conformance with. So this is what was referenced in the 1998 decision.
That's the approved 1998 plan. Is that plan right there?
Yep. And so I just quickly highlighted in orange, those are the 5 spaces, and those are the in-lot trees that we're trying to
Okay.
make
All right.
conforming.
All right. Well, we're gonna,
Move forward with this project. So
And it's not just the spaces, it's also this charging station, which I think is going to look like
where
shit.
are we putting a charging station?
Right there in the front where the spaces are.
I can flip back, it's not on that plan.
We were asked by the person to, basically use bushes around that to make it, to try to.
Why do you need a charging station?
For charging vehicles, for charging electric vehicles.
It's just,
Why are you charging electric vehicles?
And why does it have to be done in front?
Are these your vehicles you're charging?
It's going to be open to Comcast vehicles and also public vehicles as well. Apparently, there's like an app, so if I don't own an electric car, but if you own an electric car.
No, we're not going to allow that.
Site location on
No charging stations.
But it could be placed in another location.
If you want to stick them out back, and if you want to put them out back somewhere in your own spaces and charge them out of sight, we don't care what you're charging, but this isn't going to be a, Tesla dealership here, no.
So
that was the
there was an
idea,
alternate
for
location
customers with electric
to be
cars.
placed in the back of this area.
It takes a long time to charge a car. Does it take like 2 hours to charge a car or something? Yeah. Well, yeah.
So you can move them someplace else? on the site?
Absolutely, absolutely. There was another alternative location back in this generation, I'm not exactly sure.
And that's off the street
And that's off the street.
and out of sight?
And out of sight.
Okay, so let's address the site plan right now. So we're going to say that they're required to replant all of the trees that were supposed to be there originally, that are
Yeah.
labeled on this plan.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to take this plan from you, and we're going to use it as an exhibit, okay? All right, we're going to do that right now. And you're representing to us that everything on this plan are trees that need to be planted. Is that?
Not everything. Oh,
Where the orange
orange
is.
ones, yeah.
The orange. In the orange, those are required to be planted.
Sorry, I believe I circled them, I just wanted to verify.
Yep.
Those were the 9, so those are labeled, if you look really closely, you'd see that it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It actually goes up for 9 in-lot trees.
All right, so we're going to do
Get back to-
9 in-lot trees.
And they had similar concerns.
No 5 spaces in the front of the building.
But those were the numbers, so they're like, I don't necessarily agree, but those are
No,
the
we're
spots
taking,
that were.
we're taking them away. If you want your tanks, we're taking your parking space away. What's more important to you?
In my personal opinion, even if they were allowed based on what was done way back in 1998 for the spaces, I think you've got a lot of spaces there. You've got the extra agreement with the property next door. Leave the buffer the way it is.
I think that was the concern, just sort of being conforming, but to your point exactly, we've procured extra parking. Right next to it.
Move the charging station.
No charging stations.
Well, the charging station moved to the rear.
In the back,
correct?
yep.
Well, does the public have access to the back of the building?
That area that is open, there's no fence or gate prohibiting.
Yeah,
They have access, they can drive off the street.
They can
and get
drive
to
up,
it,
but we.
If they know it's there.
Yeah, but they're in between some big trucks and stuff, and we didn't feel comfortable having them backing in there because, I can talk to them about just not doing the charging station.
Let's get out of the charging station business.
It can be
Let
anywhere
somebody,
outside there.
That's fine.
well, what are we doing about the charging stations? We're getting two
I mean,
things
as
that
long
we're
as it's
saying.
not in the front buffer with
Where
those
would,
spaces.
where are you going to
Well,
put
I don't care
charging?
if it goes anywhere back in here.
Do you mind if we eliminate it?
I don't care if you eliminate it, I have,
National Grid gave us a plan, and they showed us the options. The option one was here, option two was generally in this area, I'm not exactly.
Yeah, we were trying to
It was
eliminate
getting power from this pole over, and the charging stations was towards this corner,
And option 3 is having none.
and option three is having none.
We'll go with option 3.
Okay.
I don't, again, I think you're turning it into a place where people are going to be in and out of your yard that aren't even going to come in there for Comcast business to charge their cars.
But in the future, I guess part of the concern, just so we're putting everything on the table, is that a lot of large corporations are going to electric vehicles. There's actually going to be WB50s, like huge tractor-trailer trucks are going electric. So again, people are starting to put forethought ahead. They're saying if we're doing a construction project, you know, we may want to permit for these things, but.
It was more to be customer friendly, really,
Absolutely.
keeping it in the front. Yeah.
I mean, I guess my objection isn't really with the charging station, but where you were going to put them in the front. I don't want any parking in the front of the building. So if you guys want to find some charging stations that are in existing spaces, that are not in the commercial, well, first of all, you're not going to let people back there where all your trucks are, so that's your business. I mean, if you want to let people back there, I'm sure your insurance company won't like that idea, but.
But if it was anywhere on the side of the building.
for employees,
Or towards the rear.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, I mean, if it's for employees or something like that, you're right. I mean, people will be going,
So like this area it's behind, on the side of the building, not in the frontage. That would be something that the board would consider.
that's at your discretion, as long as it's not in the front of the building. So we're not going to address charging stations. We're just saying you can't have 5 spaces in the front of the building.
Okay.
Okay, so 9 in-lot trees, no spaces in the front of the building. Are you in violation of anything else? Any other?
So, because we're adding the trees in and we're losing spaces in here to add these trees in, if we don't do these 5, then our total number of parking
Just
spaces
add
would go
those to your
down
calculations for using the neighbors.
for the neighbor.
Yeah.
'Cause our-
Something they've got.
Which we can do.
So go see the neighbor. Okay.
Absolutely. We were
All right.
kind of pointed in a direction, so our team ran that way because we thought that was the direction that you folks wanted us to go. So
All right,
I
so,
understand.
so we will approve the storage tanks as presented and the generators. Everybody in agreement with that?
Everybody's comfortable with that?
I mean, again, it's safety, okay, for the drinking supply. If it's represented these are safe, if our on-site engineer, which I have faith in Tom here, that he knows what he's looking at here. I mean, I know they're safe, okay,
He
but,
does drink bottled water, though.
well, it's all right, that's all right.
Same tap.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to include in total the recommendations from,
The Board of Health, we're going to incorporate the requirements in the Board of Health in their memorandum. We're going to incorporate it in the decision, and you'll be required to follow their recommendations, which I will tell you what they are in just a second. So the storage tanks,
no parking?
no charging stations, no 5 spaces in the front of the building.
We're clear, so because the 5 spaces are going away, we wouldn't do the drainage underneath them, because we were basically installing an infiltration system to account for those 5 parking spaces.
That's fine.
That's fine, I don't care about that, yeah.
Yep.
Touching the ground, so.
Just making sure. We're on the same page.
I think if they want to have the charging station for employees.
Oh, if
back
you,
there somewhere-
like I said, go, you just can't put them in the front of the front of the
in the
yard.
front of the building.
Right, yeah, I have no problem with charging stations. Okay, so we're going to approve the storage tanks, we're approving the generators. And a plan will be submitted to this board. That details
Shrinking the tanks.
the,
A cross-section and calculations for the containment.
can we get that, cross-section and calculations for the containment?
Absolutely.
Do you have a requirement, like how quickly you want that? Because we'd like to move forward as fast as possible.
No.
You're gonna, yeah, I mean, you're gonna need them anyway for the building department, right?
Understand. Does that mean that we have to come back before this board?
No,
Is that the plan?
no, you're not coming
Thank
back.
you.
No, you're just gonna submit as-built plans.
As much as we
All
know
right.
you'd like
No
to.
offense.
Yeah, I know you guys are having a good time here tonight.
I'm new to this, my.
Well, just remember, I wasn't insulting you three, okay? My
understand.
ire was at Comcast, so.
I understand.
All right, plan will be submitted, the details, cross-sections, and calculations, showing the drainage, did you say?
No drainage.
No, showing calculations.
Containment.
Containment.
Containment, right.
Showing containment.
And then
And we are going to incorporate
Board of Health.
the Board of Health memorandum,
the date
where
of September 23rd,
BOH memo
recommendations.
923.
8 conditions.
19, and there, how many recommendations are there?
8.
8 recommendations. Does that have a page number there on?
Yes, it does. It's page 6 and 7.
On page 6 and 7. And just let me add that we're also going to require you to conform or to what do you have to do to these things, the septic things now? What are we doing with them? Where's my?
Annual test. The septic test.
Annual septic test.
Yeah.
What, you have to install something though?
Oh, the containment system
Okay, install containment systems,
And
around
test.
around septic chemicals.
system. Is that around the septic system?
It actually, no, it goes it goes underneath the barrels.
Okay, so we're going to install a containment system to the septic system? What do you call this?
It's
Contain-
chemicals that they use on the septic
The
system.
remedial system.
Yes, he noted them as methanol.
Okay, so containment drums at the septic system?
Yes.
Correct.
And is that the same as the other methanol, or what was the other concern they had there in that Board of Health memo?
I think that was the, I think that
Hold on, I'm writing on the back of the Board of Health memo. All right, okay, so you're going to install the methanol drums that are used by the IA system in on-site wastewater treatment. Those are going to be installed.
The drums are already there, sir. We are going to put the containment underneath them that the Board of Health is requesting.
That's one of the conditions, right?
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
other condition here is, of course, the reports.
Facilities and energy requires an annual test. And you're going to do annual test reports, correct?
That's in the whole thing, too.
That's one of the 8 conditions.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Is that in one of the 8 conditions?
On page 7.
Both of those last ones.
And does that talk about the 80% fuel, 80% fill?
It's in the document, but not in
In the
the.
document, is in the narrative, but not part of the recommendations.
We can add that to the approved plan as well, as part of the calculations, so that it's
Yeah, tanks aren't to be,
part of.
tanks are not to be filled more than 80%. We get everything?
Okay. You're doing good.
You got the trees, right?
As far as the
We
parking.
got the trees.
Just removing the 5 in the front would bring us to 57 parking spaces on site. I just wanted to I don't know if there's a way to clarify for the commissioner that this board feels that is the preferred alternative to move forward with.
Are those 5 spaces there right now?
No, it was
They're
on the
not
approved
there.
plan, but never constructed.
And you're losing a few spaces because of the generator
Well,
location and the
Right,
other
well,
in-laws.
what we're doing is,
You were losing 4 and got 5?
yeah,
Yes,
we're,
that's correct.
Transportation was
we're-
1.
We have to check to see how much parking they procured,
20 spaces.
20 spaces.
They have, and we have the
How many
license agreement.
employees do you have on site now?
So you're getting 20 spaces from the abutter,
Butter.
Correct.
which is more than enough to get you over that.
To maintain
How
what's
many
there.
employees do you have in the building now?
It's in the calculation, so that right now there are, what'd I do with it?
what we'll do is we'll give you no 5 spaces in the front of the building, and we're going to give you a waiver of 5 spaces under the parking space requirement for you giving that up. Okay, so I'll write that in the decision.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Waiver of the required 5 spaces, because you're giving those up, and we asked you to. Okay. All right, so we've got the 9 in-law trees, no spaces in the front of the building. We're giving them a waiver on the required 5 spaces that they need to come into compliance, or closer into compliance with the parking demand. There'll be no charging. Well, we don't care about the charging spaces. We're leaving that out because we're not giving you those spaces anyway, so you can put those wherever you want. We are going to approve the 2 new generators with the 250 kilowatt generators with the 1,470 gallon, is that what it is? 1,470 gallon tanks. They will be designed and constructed as per the plans submitted by you. You will provide the board with a detailed plan of cross-sections and calculations showing containment. We are incorporating the Board of Health memorandum dated 9/23/19 and adding the 8 recommendations as conditions that you'll find on pages 6 and 7 of the Board of Health memorandum. And we're going to require the drums be installed at the septic systems, and annual test reports be done on those. And the tanks will not be filled. The tanks for the generators will not be filled to more than 80% capacity at any time.
Correct.
Everybody in agreement with that?
So moved.
So moved. I got a motion by Mr. Martin.
Second.
Seconds all over the place. I don't even have anything to write on here. All right. Motion made by Mr. Martin, seconded by Mr. who? Mr. Barron, to approve the petition with the conditions that I just listed. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, hearing none, that carries unanimously. The way this works is, once I write the decision, it's going to take me a few days, and I'll bother Sandy. Then we record it with the town clerk. A 20-day period must elapse. It's a technical appeal period. After that period has elapsed, then you can come see Sandy. She will give you your special permit. You need to take it to the Registry of Deeds and record it, and then bring back proof of recordation to this board. Just give it to Sandy.
Okay.
Any questions?
No.
All right, thank you very much for your patience, gentlemen. Good luck with that project. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn? What do we have on this stuff?
We have minutes.
We're being sued or something?
Well, we'll go on the, we're going to move to approve the minutes. Of what date?
The sub date will be the minutes from June 27th. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from June 27th of 2019.
Okay, do I have a second to approve the minutes? Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?